Our story began in the middle of the city, where there was a tall hospital. On the front wall, a big red cross sign was shining. The sky above was bright, with soft clouds floating gently. One day, a boy entered this hospital. He was sent to the psychiatry department. The board outside clearly showed the name. Inside the room, a woman doctor was sitting on a chair. She was wearing a white coat and glasses. A file was in her hand, and she looked at the boy seriously. The boy wore a dark shirt and sat quietly in front of her. His hands rested on his lap, and his head was slightly lowered. The doctor asked him, "You're saying every living creature you see looks like a pig?" The boy stayed silent. The room became calm, waiting for his reply. The boy sat quietly in front of the doctor. His lips moved a little and he gave a small nod. He did not speak, but his face showed the truth. The doctor looked at him with wide eyes. Then she leaned forward, pointed at herself, and asked, "Are you joking with me?" Her voice carried both surprise and doubt. She touched her face with one finger and gave a half smile. Her cheeks turned a little red. Then she said, "So in your eyes, I'm a pig too?" The boy stayed silent, not knowing what to say. The room grew heavy with the strange question as the doctor tried to understand his unusual world. The doctor stared at the boy with surprise. Slowly, her face began to change in his eyes. To him, her human face turned into the face of a pig. With sharp nails and a big snout, she said, "I've never heard of a condition like this before." The boy stared, confused and afraid. But then, the doctor's face returned to normal. Her eyes softened, and she smiled at him. She whispered, "Such a handsome young man." The boy's eyes opened wide. He did not know what to say. The doctor stepped closer and touched her coat. Finally, she said in a calm but serious tone, "Anyway, let's first check if your body functions are normal." The boy swallowed hard. A drop of sweat rolled down his face. He was not sure if this was a doctor's test or something much stronger. The doctor looked at the boy closely. She leaned forward, her glasses shining in the light, and asked, "So what do you see right now?" Her face was calm, but inside her mind she thought, "I don't believe it. I'm so beautiful. Even in a madman's eyes, I can't be a pig." But in the boy's eyes, her face had already changed. To him, she looked like a pig once again. Even her chest appeared like two smiling pigs staring at him. The boy's eyes widened. He stayed silent for a moment, then finally spoke, "Two pigs." The doctor froze, shocked by his words. The room went silent again, filled with tension and disbelief. Suddenly the doctor stepped back. Her eyes went wide and she covered her chest with her hand. In shock, she shouted, "He really is mentally ill." The boy just sat quietly, watching her reaction. A little later, the doctor calmed herself and told him to sit down. She pointed to a model of the human spine on her desk. Holding it in her hand, she said, "Your spine has serious problems." She leaned closer, showing him the twisted bones. Pointing at one part, she explained, "Here, it's different from a normal person's. It is severely deformed, even a bit twisted. It's pressing on your brain and optic nerves." She paused for a moment and then added, "This might be the reason why everyone looks like a pig to you." The boy's face stayed blank, but inside his mind her words echoed again and again. His face turned pale. He looked at the doctor with wide, shocked eyes and whispered. Then, the doctor adjusted her glasses, her tone now serious. She said, "The only solution is surgery to realign your spine, but the success rate is low. If it fails, you might be paralyzed from the neck down." Her words fell heavy in the room. The boy froze in silence, his mind filled with fear. It was a choice between living with his strange vision or risking everything on a dangerous operation. He sat quietly for a moment, his face pale and expression blank. A drop of sweat slid down his cheek. Finally, he looked at the doctor and said in a low voice, "Doctor, are you done talking?" The doctor froze, still holding the model of the spine in her hands. Then the boy slowly stood up. His eyes turned dark, glowing red with a strange light. He stretched out his hand toward her and spoke in a chilling tone. "Then can you give me back my spine?" The room fell silent. The doctor's heart raced as she realized something was terribly wrong. She clutched the model tightly in her hands, sweat running down her face. Inside her mind she thought, "Huh? He actually thinks this model is his own spine. Such a handsome guy. What a waste." The scene suddenly shifted outside the hospital. The city was bright, buses moved along the road, and people walked by as usual. Inside one bus, the boy sat with a blank expression. He yawned, tired and restless, while others looked at him strangely. In his hands, he held a medical report. On the cover, one line was written in bold letters: severe mental illness. The boy looked at it calmly and said in his heart, "My name is Ye Chuan." As Ye Chuan sat on the bus, he looked around. To him, every single person had the face of a pig. Since I can remember, he thought, everything I see looks like a pig. Maybe it's because my parents were pig butchers. Honestly, it doesn't affect my life much, except when it comes to dating. He hugged his medical report tightly. The words severe mental illness stared back at him. Today is the day to awaken our professions, he whispered. I was hoping this illness could be cured before I awaken. Guess not. The bus stopped at a grand academy, Ching Cheng Academy, the awakening ceremony site. A giant glowing crystal stood in the center, shining brightly under the sun. As students gathered, Ye Chuan walked in quietly, his thoughts heavy. Could this illness affect my profession awakening? That would be a huge problem. He lowered his head, worried, as the ceremony was about to begin. Just then, as Ye Chuan stepped into the ceremony site, a soft voice called out to him, "Bro Ye Chuan." He turned and saw a girl with long blue hair and bright eyes. She ran up to him, slightly out of breath, her cheeks blushing. "You're finally here. If you were late, I'd beat you up, got it?" She raised her small fist to threaten him, but in Ye Chuan's eyes, her face twisted. Once again, he saw only the face of a pig smiling at him. The girl's expression was cute and worried, but in his vision, it looked strange and frightening. "Did you hear me?" she shouted, waving her fists in frustration. Ye Chuan stayed quiet, his eyes half dead, as if her words hardly reached him. He stood still, a bead of sweat rolling down his cheek. Before he could react, a voice came from behind. "Shu Ling Xuan, why are you clinging to Ye Chuan again? You two keep acting lovey-dovey every day." Some students nearby laughed and whispered, "They're childhood sweethearts, probably getting married and having kids after this awakening." Lingshan's face turned red with anger. She shouted back, "Don't talk nonsense." Still, she held tightly onto Ye Chuan's arm, refusing to let go. But in Ye Chuan's eyes, her face once again twisted into the face of a pig, smiling by his side. He forced an awkward smile, trying to stay calm. Lingshan looked at him softly and said, "Bro Ye Chuan, let's ignore them." The students gathered inside a grand hall. At the center floated a giant glowing crystal, shining with mysterious energy. An elder with long white hair stepped forward and shouted, "Line up according to your student numbers. The ceremony is about to begin." The students quickly stood in order, their eyes filled with excitement and fear. The elder raised his hand and explained, "Today is the time to showcase everything you've learned at school. Awakening depends on 3 attributes: strength, agility, and spirit. The higher your attributes, the greater your chance of awakening an advanced profession." His voice echoed across the hall as he continued. "During the ceremony, focus all your energy. The profession you awaken will shape your entire life. If you gain an advanced combat profession, you will defy fate, earn admiration, and bring glory to Ching Cheng Academy." The students held their breath, their hearts pounding. Finally, the elder pointed at the crystal and declared, "Let's begin. Place your hand on the stone platform." One by one, students stepped forward, touching the crystal, waiting for their fate to be revealed. The moment a strong boy touched it, sparks of lightning shot out. The crystal flashed, and glowing words appeared: life-type profession, intermediate metalworker. The boy's face fell. He had hoped for a combat class, but instead he received an ordinary profession. Next came another student. He pressed his palm against the crystal, and a bright purple light surged. Life-type profession, advanced healer. The crowd gasped in surprise. This was a rare and respected profession. One after another, the students awakened their fates. Some shouted in joy, while others cried in despair. Life-type profession, junior engineer, the crystal announced for another boy, who collapsed on the ground in frustration. The elder watched calmly, his sharp eyes fixed on every result. Then, he pointed at the next student in line. The hall grew quiet as the boy stepped forward. A red-haired student nervously walked up to the crystal. His face was pale, and sweat dripped down his forehead. Slowly, he raised his hand and pressed it against the glowing stone. At once, a golden light burst out, shining brighter than ever before. The crowd gasped in shock. Combat-type profession, rare tier, shadowless bladesman. The hall erupted in noise. Students shouted in surprise, their faces full of disbelief. The principal's eyes widened with excitement. With a big smile, he asked, "Student, what's your name?" The red-haired boy straightened his back proudly and answered, "Principal, my name is Liu Jinglong." "Great name," the principal said, patting his shoulder. "Take a good rest now. Later, I'll personally visit your home to discuss your future path." The students whispered among themselves, amazed by Liu Jinglong's rare awakening. The ceremony continued, the hall still filled with cheers from his achievement. Then the principal called the next name, Ye Chuan. All eyes turned to the black-haired boy in plain clothes as he slowly walked forward. From the crowd, a girl shouted, "Bro Ye Chuan!" "Good luck." The principal looked at him carefully. This guy usually seems odd, but his stats are insanely high. A normal student's total is 3, but he has 10, 3 times more. Ye Chuan took a deep breath. His eyes were cold and focused. Maybe something miraculous will happen, he thought. He pressed his hands firmly against the crystal stone. In an instant, the hall shook violently. Blinding light exploded as red and golden lightning danced across the sky. Students screamed in shock, shielding their eyes. The principal gasped, This is golden light?" The crystal roared with power, glowing brighter and brighter, as if it would shatter at any moment. Everyone stood frozen, realizing something extraordinary was about to awaken. The crystal blazed with golden light, shocking everyone. The principal shouted in disbelief, "Divine tear! It really is divine tear!" Gasps spread through the crowd. A divine awakening was something most people could only dream of. But then, glowing words appeared on the crystal, life-type profession, divine pig butcher. The principal froze. His smile vanished. "Pig? Butcher?" he muttered. The crowd erupted in laughter. "Ha ha ha! Is this a malfunction? How could there be such a dumb profession?" Students pointed at Ye Chuan, mocking him without mercy. The principal clenched his fist, frustration filling his voice. Heaven must be playing a joke. After so many years, a divine awakening appears, and it's the most useless profession. Even he couldn't hide his disappointment. If it had been divine blacksmith, healer, or alchemist, I could boast about it. But pig butcher? The crowd's laughter grew louder, while Ye Chuan stood silently, his expression unreadable. But then, a strange blue light surrounded him. His eyes widened. System? A glowing panel appeared before his eyes. "System?" he whispered. The panel displayed, Name, Ye Chuan Level, Tier 1, Apprentice, Strength, 5, Agility, 3, Spirit, 2, Profession, Divine Pig, Butcher Talents, Swine, Nemesis, Blade of God Slaying Profession, Skill, Blood Shadow Butcher, Level 1, Swine Nemesis, Deal 50% bonus damage to pigs. For every pig killed, your power increases by 1%. Pigs deal only half damage to you. Blade of God Slaying. Designate any weapon as a pig slaughtering knife. Each pig killed grants 0.1 free attribute points. Blood Shadow Butcher. Release a chilling aura that forces pigs into a 1-second fear state. Ye Chuan's eyes widened. What everyone saw as a useless profession might actually hide terrifying potential. His eyes scanned the glowing blue screen. His lips trembled as he read the words aloud, "Swine Nemesis?" A faint smile curved at the corner of his mouth. 50% bonus damage? To pigs? At first it sounded ridiculous, but deep inside, Ye Chuan felt a strange excitement. Everyone was laughing at his so-called useless profession, yet this hidden power hinted at something far more terrifying. What others mocked could become his greatest weapon. A red glow lit up in Ye Chuan's eyes. The mocking voices of the crowd no longer mattered. He slowly raised his head, a chilling smile spreading across his face. Maybe being a lunatic isn't so bad after all. In that moment, Ye Chuan stopped caring about what others thought. If the world laughed at him, he would use this so-called useless power to carve out a path of his own, no matter how insane it seemed. Ye Chuan's crimson eyes glowed brighter. The crowd's laughter echoed around him, but in his vision, everything had changed. The faces of students, teachers, even the principal, all twisted and warped, until they looked like pigs. "Because this world, in my eyes," he whispered coldly. To him, they were no longer humans mocking his fate. They were nothing more than livestock, waiting to be slaughtered. The hall fell silent as Ye Chuan slowly walked toward the massive stone. Every step echoed, heavy and tense, while the principal watched from behind. But among the crowd, whispers began to rise. Students pointed, sneered, and then the laughter started. Hey, look at him. The whispers turned into loud jeers. One student smirked and said loudly, I thought Ching Cheng Academy would finally produce a real dragon. But he's just a pig butcher. Laughter exploded in the crowd. That's hilarious. Ching Cheng Academy has only one real dragon. And that's you, brother Liu Jinglong. The red-haired boy, Liu Jinglong, smiled proudly as his friends cheered him on. Mocking words cut deep, but Ye Chuan stayed silent, his head lowered. Then, a soft voice broke through the noise. A girl with long silver hair stepped forward and whispered gently, It's okay, brother Ye Chuan. As the crowd laughed, one girl stepped closer to him. Her silver hair shimmered in the light, her voice soft and comforting. You awakened the divine-level pig butcher, so you're basically following in your father's footsteps. Her words carried no mockery, only warmth. But in the shadows of the crowd, others gritted their teeth. Damn it! That lucky brat! He must have gathered blessings for several lifetimes. Their jealous cries only added fuel to the fire. Zhu Lingshuan looked at Ye Chuan, her cheeks turning red. Uncle Ye will be thrilled. My father will be too. Ye Chuan lowered his eyes. In his heart, memories surfaced. Zhu Lingshuan and I, we've been neighbors since we were kids. Our parents always had the same wish, to see us together someday. Images of childhood flashed in Ye Chuan's mind. A little boy and girl holding hands, laughing innocently under their parents' watchful eyes. Back then, it was just play. But now, standing here, mocked by the world, she was the only one still by his side. The principal's voice echoed. Next up, Zhu Lingshuan. Stepping forward gracefully, Zhu Lingshuan smiled. Her long silver hair swayed as she turned to Ye Chuan. It's my turn, brother Ye Chuan. I wonder, will I inherit my mother's tailoring profession, or my father's winemaking skills? But no matter what profession I awaken, I'll always stay by your side. Hearing those words, Ye Chuan froze. His heart trembled, his eyes wide with shock. Zhu Lingshuan stepped forward, her hand trembling slightly as she touched the crystal stone. The crowd fell silent, all eyes fixed on her. In that instant, a surge of power erupted. A blinding blue light shot up into the sky, shaking the entire hall. Gasps and cries echoed around. Even the mocking voices from before were drowned in awe. Her eyes widened in disbelief, her lips parting as she whispered, This power. It can't be. What she awakened was not ordinary. It was something far beyond anyone's imagination. Then, the examiner himself staggered back, his voice trembling yet thundering across the chamber. What? That's a legendary profession. As Zhu Lingshuan's hand remained on the crystal stone, a blinding surge of energy erupted again, freezing the very air itself. The examiner's jaw dropped in disbelief. She actually awakened a legendary combat profession? Impossible. Her parents are both life-type. This must be some kind of mutation. And then the truth appeared before everyone's eyes. Combat-type profession. Legendary, tier, snow soul sword, immortal. The hall trembled. Gasps spread through the crowd. Whispers turned into shouts. A legendary profession. This changes everything. The girl who once stood quietly by Ye Chuan's side was now shining brighter than anyone else, like a goddess of ice and sword. Even the head of Ching Cheng Academy stepped forward, his voice full of awe. Zhu Lingshuan, don't worry. From this day forward, Ching Cheng Academy will fully support you in everything you need. Zhu Lingshuan gracefully stepped down from the stage, her voice calm yet full of confidence. Thank you. The entire hall admired her beauty and her newfound power, but whispers soon turned sharp. One's just a pig butcher, the other, a legendary combatant. Do you really think Zhu Lingshuan will still follow Ye Chuan around like a puppy? Sneers and laughter spread through the crowd. Zhu Lingshuan is improving, but what about Ye Chuan? That loser should do the smart thing and stay away from her. And yet, standing right before her, Ye Chuan forced a smile. His voice was shaky, but his words sincere. Congratulations. Even as the world mocked him, he chose to celebrate her success. Lingshuan's voice suddenly echoed through the hall. Ye Chuan. She looked at him, her eyes calm but firm. I admit, there were some misunderstandings between us, but from now on, let's clear things up. Her words hung in the air, heavy and cold. And then, the final blow. We're no longer people from the same world. The crowd smirked, some even laughing behind her back. To them, Ye Chuan was nothing more than a joke. Yet, with a stiff smile and wide eyes, he forced out one word. Fine. I know this must be a huge blow to you. Don't pretend like you're fine. You're just a pig butcher. You'll never achieve anything great. Her words pierced deeper than any blade, and yet Ye Chuan's eyes didn't waver. Don't blame me, he whispered coldly. For a moment, in his mind, Ling Xuan's proud face twisted into the face of a pig. She turned away, dismissing him completely. If you've got no objections, then let's call it settled. Just don't bother me again in the future. Ye Chuan forced a hollow smile. Finally, got rid of that pig head. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. The crowd fell silent, shocked at his words. But before he could walk away, a red-haired man stepped forward, smirking arrogantly. Shu Ling Xuan, need me to teach him a lesson, so he sees reality clearly? The red-haired brute pulled Lingshan close, smirking arrogantly. Then, with a roar that echoed across the crowd, "Hey, pig butcher, get over here!" The crowd gasped, eyes widening. But Ye Chuan didn't even flinch. He simply kept walking, ignoring the insult. "Huh?" the man snarled, rage boiling. He stormed forward, grabbing Ye Chuan's arm. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" And then, Ye Chuan's eyes shifted, cold, empty. A crimson glint flickered in the shadows. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice low. The crowd still laughed, but in the next second, silence fell. From the shadows, Ye Chuan's eyes lit up, a piercing violet glow that sliced through the air. The red-haired thug froze, his grin twisting into horror. His body moved back instinctively, but it was too late. Whoa, he stammered, kicking out wildly. But when his gaze locked onto Ye Chuan's, he felt it, that killing intent. In his mind, illusions flashed. A butcher's blade, a pig tied helpless on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. His heart pounded. Cold sweat rolled down his face. What's going on?" he whispered, as terror swallowed his courage. The crowd burst into laughter, mocking the scene as if it were a joke. But Jinglong's body trembled, his face turned pale, sweat dripping down his temple. One of his men shouted nervously, "Brother Jinglong, what happened to you? Are you okay?" Hearing that only fueled his rage. His teeth clenched, veins bulged, and his eyes burned with fury. "Damn it, you brat!" he roared, his voice echoed like thunder. And then, pointing at Ye Chuan with madness in his eyes, "You dare glare at me?" With blind rage, Jinglong charged forward, swinging his fist with everything he had. In a flash, Ye Chuan's fist shot forward, faster than lightning. The impact shook the air. Bam! Jinglong's strike was stopped cold. Ye Chuan's hand gripped his arm, locking it with unshakable force. Veins bulged across Jinglong's skin, his face twisted in pain. The crowd froze. Gasps filled the air. "What? What's happening?" Even his allies couldn't believe their eyes. Jinglong, veins bulging, struggled desperately, rage twisting his face. "That's impossible. You're just a pig butcher. Why are you this strong?" But Ye Chuan only stepped forward, his eyes glowing with deadly calm. His voice cut through the silence. "I'm a pig butcher. Of course I'd have monstrous strength in my hands. Makes perfect sense, right?" The crowd watches with wide eyes. One man shouts, "What's going on?" Look at Brother Jinglong's hand. Jinglong's face twists in rage. His voice shakes the air. "Ye Chuan, I'm going to kill you," he roars. He raises his arm and blue light explodes around it. A glowing sword of energy forms in his hand. The blade hums sharp and deadly. "Ah!" Jinglong screams and charges forward with the sword. The crowd starts to panic. "It's over," one man shouts. Brother Jinglong is serious now. That kid is dead for sure. Another man shakes his head. Ye Chuan is in for so much pain. Why would a pig butcher fight a combat-class warrior? He should just back down and admit he was wrong. Everyone looked at the glowing blue sword in Jinglong's hand. "That's the void longsword," someone whispered. "It can cut right through steel." Jinglong stepped forward, his eyes burning with anger. He pointed the shining blade at Ye Chuan. "I'm going to cripple you right here." He raised the sword, ready to strike. But suddenly his body froze. Blue ice crept across his arms and legs. His eyes widened in shock. "My body, it won't move," he gasped. Frost spread quickly, locking his movements. He struggled, but it was no use. With fear in his voice, Jinglong shouted, "Shu Ling Xuan, why are you still helping him?" The crowd turned their eyes. Shu Lingshuan stepped forward. Snowflakes swirled around her. Her eyes were sharp, her voice firm. "Stop it," she commanded. The cold air grew even heavier. She looked at both fighters, her face calm but serious. "I don't want to see you fighting so fiercely because of me." The arena fell silent. Everyone stared at her glowing figure, the one who stopped the battle with just her power. Shu Lingshuan's voice echoed, steady and clear. She stood firm, her blue aura shining around her. "Yechuan," she said softly, "you see it too. We're not from the same world anymore." Her words were heavy, like a door closing on the past. "This is the last time I'll step in to help you. Consider it my farewell to everything we once had." Yichuan stood still, his expression unreadable. Slowly he scratched his ear as if brushing away her words. "You should go," he replied, calm and cold. Lingshan turned her back, her long hair swaying. "Leave Qingcheng," she warned, "because if Liu Jinglong comes for revenge again, I won't help you next time." With that she walked away, leaving silence behind. The crowd whispered nervously, realizing a bond had just been broken. Yichuan stretched his arms lazily and yawned. "Ah, if there's nothing else, I'll be going now," he said, walking away casually. The crowd stared at him in shock. Two people whispered to each other, their faces full of disbelief. "This kid, it's like he doesn't take this seriously at all." While everyone was tense, Ye Chuan looked relaxed, almost bored. He turned his back and slowly left the arena, his black shirt swaying in the breeze. Soon he was walking down the quiet city streets alone. The tall buildings around him cast long shadows, and the world felt colder. Even in the crowd, his figure looked lonely, like he didn't belong anywhere. As Ye Chuan walked through the street, a sudden bark cut through the air. "Woof! Woof!" A huge black dog rushed at him, teeth bared, drool dripping from its mouth. Behind the dog stood a strange, fat woman in a bright red dress, a golden necklace hanging around her neck. Her face looked smug, but her eyes were sharp. Yechuan stopped, glancing at the beast. His expression didn't change. The dog growled louder, ready to bite. "Woof! Woof!" The woman stepped closer. Her figure looked even stranger now, her nose shaped like a pig's snout. And behind the dog, another ugly pig beast appeared, glaring with red eyes. Yechuan sighed. "Hello," he said calmly. "Can you pull your pig?" He paused, correcting himself with a faint smirk. "I mean dog, away, it's blocking my way." The woman's face twisted in anger. She leaned in close, shouting, "Do you own this road? Have you no manners? Young people these days have no compassion at all." Her voice echoed down the street, her pig-like face trembling with rage, while the dog's growls grew louder. Yichuan lowered his head, a faint smile crossing his lips. Perfect timing, he thought. "I have a theory to test." The beast lunged forward, jaws wide open, but before it could touch him, Yichuan's leg flashed out like lightning, kicking the dog straight in the stomach. The force lifted the beast off the ground, sending it flying through the air. "Ah!" the dog cried out in pain. "Ah!" the woman screamed, her eyes going wide in shock. The beast crashed to the ground, rolling as blood sprayed from its mouth. The woman's face turned pale. "My son," she cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. In her panic, she shouted again, "Son, don't scare Mommy! Don't leave Mommy!" Right after the beast was kicked away, a blue screen suddenly appeared in front of Ye Chuan. System notification. Extra damage increased by 1%. Ye Chuan's eyes widened slightly. He whispered to himself, "Just as I thought, it really works." The fat woman's face twisted with rage. "You damn murderer! You killed my son and bullied an old woman like me. I'll fight you to the death." Her eyes burned red as she charged at Ye Chuan, claws reaching forward. But Ye Chuan didn't flinch. His voice was cold. "I'm a psychopath." He pulled out a cardboard sign that read "Psycho" and held it up in front of her. His glowing eyes stared directly into hers. "Is there anything else? If not, I'm leaving," he said flatly. The woman froze. Sweat rolled down her forehead. Her anger melted into fear. "I've run into a psycho," she thought, trembling. "Forget my dog, even if he killed me too, I'd die for nothing." Her face quickly changed into a fake smile. It's nothing. Young man, take care of yourself," she said, laughing nervously. The next moment, Ye Chuan's home. Back at home, the warm glow of the evening sun filled the room. His father, a tall, broad man with a carefree laugh, looked at him with pride. "Son, you changed your profession to pig butcher?" the father asked, scratching the back of his head with a wide grin. Ye Chuan stood still, face blank. He replied simply. His mother, standing close to his father, smiled warmly, though her eyes carried a trace of worry. The father chuckled loudly, patting Yechuan on the shoulder. "Stinky kid, you really take after me? It's great for us to just be honest pig butchers, better than all that fighting and killing." He laughed again, completely unaware of the system's secret inside Yechuan. "Tomorrow I'll take you to slaughterhouse so you can get familiar with it." Yechuan's eyes flickered for a brief moment. He didn't argue or explain. He only nodded slightly. That night, the house was quiet. Yechuan lay on his bed in a silly pig onesie, arms spread wide as he snored loudly. Outside, the moon hung in the sky, silver light falling on the tiled roof. But in the shadows, something else was moving. Black smoke curled around the house. Glowing blue eyes appeared inside the mist. A dark figure stood at the window, staring in. Yechuan's parents were asleep, holding each other. His father's voice echoed softly in the darkness as if speaking to the shadow. "I'm sure you know by now my son is just an ordinary pig butcher. Don't come and disturb our lives again." The black smoke swirled silently. The glowing eyes narrowed. In the dark of night, the shadowy figure finally spoke. His glowing blue eyes shimmered under the wide hat. "I never would have thought the son of Ghostcry is actually just a pig butcher." He tilted his head, voice low and mocking. "Yechiwan, is this child really your biological son?" From inside the house, Yechiwan stepped forward. His body glowed faintly with power, one eye burning red. "I've said it before," he growled. "Don't disturb us again, otherwise I won't be so polite." The shadow smirked, his smoke-like body drifting back. "Don't be angry. Since your son is really just a pig butcher, the organization will not trouble you anymore." With those words, the shadow vanished into the night. The next morning, the heavy smell of blood filled the air. Carcasses hung in rows, cold steel hooks creaking softly. Workers moved with knives chopping meat. Yechuan followed his father into the slaughterhouse, the place where his so-called ordinary profession would begin. Inside, Yechiwan pulled the curtain aside, leading his son in. The strong smell of raw meat filled the air, and the cold steel walls reflected the light. He looked serious as he said, "A good pig butcher starts with a good knife." On the wall, sharp knives of different sizes gleamed under the light. Kiwan pointed at them. "Come on, son. Pick the one that feels best in your hand." Yechuan stood still for a moment, his eyes scanning the blades. Finally, he stepped forward. His hand slowly reached out. When his fingers touched the handle of one knife, crack! A small spark of blue light ran through the blade. Yechuan's eyes widened slightly, but he stayed calm. "This one," he said quietly. "This one is very suitable." As soon as Yechuan gripped the knife, a glowing screen appeared before his eyes. System notification. Pig-slaying knife has been selected. God-slaying edge is now in effect. For every pig killed with this knife, you will be granted 0.1 free attribute points. His heart skipped a beat. So it really worked. This ordinary knife is connected to my strange system. Just then, his father's voice broke the silence. As a pig butcher, the first step is to learn how to use your knife. A large pig carcass swung gently from the hook in front of him. The smell of blood filled the cold air. Yechuan tightened his grip on the handle. The knife felt heavy, yet strangely perfect in his hand. He took a deep breath. This was his first step, not just as a butcher, but maybe something far greater. Suddenly, the pig squealed loudly, thrashing as its sharp tusks glinted under the light. Its wild eyes stared forward, filled with rage and fear. Squeal! Squeal! The sound echoed through the slaughterhouse. Yechuan stood in front of it, his black apron hanging down, a sharp knife gleaming in his hand. His father's voice came from behind, calm but firm. "Aim for the weak spot. One hit, one kill." Yechuan raised the shining knife high. With a sharp motion, he slashed down. Slash! Blood sprayed through the air, and the pig's scream cut off instantly. Its eyes went wide, then slowly turned lifeless. The beast's body fell heavy to the ground. Just then, a bright blue screen appeared in front of Yechuan. System notification. Chilled normal. Pig times 1. Level increased by 1%. Bonus damage against pig-type enemies increased by 1%. Gained 0.1 free attribute point. Yechuan's eyes widened slightly. The system had given him strength just for killing a pig. His father smiled with relief. "Nicely done. The only problem is that your strike wasn't precise enough. It didn't kill in one hit. Next time, aim for the carotid artery in the neck." Yechuan nodded quietly, his face calm but his heart racing. His father placed a hand on his head, smiling warmly. "Son, I know slaughtering pigs must feel boring and repetitive for someone your age, but this is our family's work. It's how we survive." Yechuan looked at the pigs lying nearby, his eyes steady. Then he spoke firmly. Dad, can you let me slaughter all these pigs myself? His father was stunned for a moment. Then he burst into loud laughter. Ha 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 ha! That's my boy. If you want, you can even slaughter Uncle Lee's and Uncle Chen's pigs too. Yechuan's father was proud, but deep inside, Yechuan had another thought. The more pigs I kill, the stronger I become his pig butcher class. Maybe it's not so useless after all. Yechuan's eyes glowed red as he swung the knife again and again. Each strike was sharp, clean, and filled with power. Pigs fell one after another, their squeals cut short by his blade. System notification. Chilled normal, pig times 1. Level increased by 1%. Bonus damage against pig-type enemies increased by 1%. Gained 0.1 free attribute point. Advanced to level 2. Another slash. Blood sprayed. System notification. Advanced to level 3. Yechuan's breathing grew heavy, but his body felt stronger with every kill. His arms no longer trembled. His grip on the knife became steady, almost natural. Slash after slash, he cut down the pigs without hesitation. System notification. Advanced to level 4. Inside the slaughterhouse, dozens of pig bodies hung from the ceiling. The smell of blood filled the air. Yechuan sat on a small stool, breathing heavily, sweat dripping from his face. In front of him, the glowing blue screen appeared again. System notification. Total kills, 49 normal pigs. Bonus damage against pig-type enemies increased by 100%. Core attributes increased from 10 to 15. Current rank, level 5 apprentice. He clenched his fists tightly. In just one day, he had grown far stronger than before. For others, pig slaughtering was just dirty work. But for him, it was the key to power. The other butchers stood in shock as they watched Yechuan working. One of them crossed his arms and said, "Is this your son? He's gotten addicted to slaughtering pigs. He just finished all our work for the whole week." Yechuan's father looked at them with a faint smile, pride shining in his eyes. Heh, he chuckled softly. Then with confidence he declared, "After all, my son is a divine pig butcher." The words echoed in the slaughterhouse, leaving everyone speechless. That night, Yechuan sat alone, staring at the blade in his hand. The once heavy, awkward butcher's knife now felt like an extension of his own arm. "I've gotten quite comfortable handling the pig-slaying blade," he thought, his eyes reflecting the cold gleam of steel. For the first time, a strange feeling welled up inside him. It wasn't fear, it wasn't pride, it was curiosity. "Maybe it's time to leave the slaughterhouse," he murmured, tightening his grip, "and see what the outside world has to offer." The next morning, with a simple backpack slung over his shoulders, Yechuan stepped out the door. His father thought he was just going to deliver pork to the market, but in truth, Yechuan's heart was pounding with anticipation. Beyond the slaughterhouse, the world was far more dangerous than Yechuan had ever imagined. In this world, countless races from the heavens and realms coexisted, and terrifying monsters ran rampant. Some had claws sharp enough to tear through steel, others had fangs dripping with poison, and a few were large enough to crush villages with a single step. To survive, humanity had long abandoned separate nations. Instead, they united as one. The Human Federation divided into 9 special districts. Yechuan's home, Qingcheng, was a small city at the edge of the 5th district, right on the borderlands, where humans and monsters constantly clashed. Carrying only his backpack and the butcher's blade, Yechuan walked through the city gates. Soldiers lined the entrance, their spears gleaming in the sunlight. The stone arch above bore a single word, Borderland. As Yechuan stepped through the towering gates, a guard blocked his way with a massive axe. His sharp eyes scanned Yechuan from head to toe. "You're in a life-type profession," the guard warned sternly. "Once you leave the city, you can only operate within 1 kilometer of its perimeter. Any farther, and your life will be in danger." His voice was heavy, the kind that came from years of watching reckless adventurers walk to their deaths. He leaned closer. "Do you understand?" Yechuan paused for a moment, his expression calm and unreadable. Then he gave a short nod. The forest outside the city was dark and heavy with silence. The trees stretched tall above him, their shadows twisting like claws. He walked calmly, his steps steady, though every rustle of leaves carried a hidden threat. Then rustle. Rustle. He stopped, his sharp eyes narrowing. Something was moving fast through the trees. Before he could even draw his blade, a shrill laugh echoed. Heh. A green-skinned creature leapt from the shadows, yellow eyes, glowing jagged teeth flashing in a wicked grin. A goblin. "Ya!" It screeched, charging straight at him with a crude knife in hand. The goblin lunged forward with a shriek, its jagged blade raised high. But Ye Chuan's eyes glowed crimson, a dark aura spilling from his body. Just right, he muttered coldly. I can test out the effects of Blood Shadow Butcher. A system prompt flashed before his eyes. Skill activated. Blood Shadow Butcher. The goblin froze for a split second, sensing the killing intent pressing down like a mountain. But it was too late. Ye Chuan moved. His pig-slaying blade cut through the air in a flash of blood-red light. A blue panel flickered before Ye Chuan's eyes. System notification. Killed goblin pig ×1. Level increased by 5%. Bonus damage against pig-type enemies increased by 1%. Gained 0.1 free attribute point. Ye Chuan's lips curved slightly. So the stronger the pig I kill, the more it benefits me. His eyes sharpened, catching faint green lights glowing in the darkness. Rustle, rustle. From the shadows of the forest, pairs of emerald eyes lit up, watching him, circling him. Ye Chuan's teacher's warning echoed in his mind. If you see one goblin, never let your guard down, because it means an entire group has already marked you. The glow of dozens of eyes surrounded him now. Instead of fear, Ye Chuan tightened his grip on the blade. His heartbeat was calm, steady. Looks like I'm about to level up again, he said, his voice low but filled with fighting spirit. He raised his butcher's knife, the edge gleaming under the moonlight. Bring it on, goblin pigs. From every direction, goblins leapt out of the shadows, their shrill cries echoing through the forest. Ya! Ya! Dozens of them charged at once, crude weapons raised, green bodies swarming like a flood. But Ye Chuan didn't flinch. His eyes gleamed red, his grip firm on the butcher's knife. Slash! With one swift motion, his blade carved a brilliant arc through the air, tearing through multiple goblins at once. Their bodies split apart, blood scattering like rain. Another group pounced from behind, but Ye Chuan spun sharply, his knife flashing again. Swish! 2 goblins dropped instantly, their eyes wide with fear even in death. Step by step, he advanced, each swing of his blade cutting down another enemy. To him, this was no different from slaughtering pigs in the butcher shop. Quick, clean, merciless. One terrified goblin froze in place, its crude dagger trembling in its hands. The shadow of Ye Chuan's butcher knife loomed above its head, shining with a deadly red glow. Its wide eyes filled with panic as sweat dripped down its green skin. Ye Chuan stepped forward, his figure half-shadowed, crimson eyes glowing. A twisted smile spread across his face. Come on, kids, let's play together. His voice was calm, almost mocking, but filled with killing intent. The goblins shrieked in terror. One tried to run, but before it could take 3 steps, slash. Ye Chuan stood before a giant cave hidden deep in the forest. Its entrance was dark, eerie, almost like a monster's open mouth. He looked up and muttered, "Looks like this is the goblin cave." With steady steps he walked inside. The deeper he went, the dimmer the light became, until only the red glow of the cave walls lit his path. Ye Chuan's lips curled into a cold smile. His knife gleamed in his hand as he whispered to himself, ready for battle. Soon the silence was broken. All around him the ground was littered with goblin corpses, their twisted faces frozen in terror. Blood painted the rocky floor as the red glow from the cave ceiling shone down like a spotlight on his slaughter. After wiping out the goblins, Ye Chuan suddenly heard the system's voice. A glowing blue screen appeared before his eyes. System notification. Name, Ye Chuan. Profession, Divine Pig Butcher. Level, Rank 6. Apprentice, Strength, 25. Agility, 25. Spirit, 25. Pig, Nemesis, plus 120%. Bonus damage against pigs. His eyes widened slightly. Each battle was making him stronger. But before he could think more, a sound came from deeper inside the cave. Bang bang! Ye Chuan turned his head sharply. Ahead, a giant wooden gate shook violently, as if something powerful was locked inside. Without hesitation, he walked forward. His foot crashed into the gate. Boom! The wood shattered into pieces, flying in all directions. From the darkness, a blood-red light poured out, painting Ye Chuan's figure in crimson. Inside the cave, Ye Chuan's eyes narrowed. Tied against the cold stone wall was a young woman. Her clothes were torn, her wrists bound tightly with red ropes, and her face pale with fear. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she trembled, unable to fight back. Around her, a few goblins crept closer, their twisted voices echoing through the cave. "Milk, feed me milk," they muttered with ugly grins. The girl's lips shook as she whispered through her gag, "Help me, please." The girl sat frozen, her whole body trembling. Tears streamed down her face as Ye Chuan's shadow fell over her. In his hand, the butcher's knife gleamed with a red glow. He raised it high above his head, the sharp edge catching the light like death itself. Her heart pounded wildly. "Don't kill me," she begged in a shaky voice, her eyes wide with fear. For a moment, it looked like the blade would come down on her. She shut her eyes tightly, bracing herself for the end. But instead of pain, the ropes around her body were cut apart. She gasped, falling forward in shock. Ye Chuan stood above her calm and cold, his knife still dripping with goblin blood. "Stop shouting," he said flatly. "The goblins are all dead." Her eyes widened. She turned her head slowly and saw the cave floor littered with bodies. Dozens of goblins lay lifeless, their green skin stained with blood. The girl threw herself into Ye Chuan's arms, hugging him tightly. "Thank you for saving me. I was almost violated by those goblins." Ye Chuan's face stayed cold. His eyes narrowed, and in a calm voice he said, "I didn't come here to save you." The girl froze, her heart skipping a beat. Around them, the cave floor was still littered with green corpses. Blood dripped from Ye Chuan's blade. She looked at him again, shocked. "Did you kill all of these?" Her voice trembled, half afraid, half amazed. She glanced at the goblin bodies, heads crushed, throats cut, their eyes still wide with fear. "You're amazing," she whispered. "Are you a combat-type profession?" The girl followed him out of the dark cave, her steps weak but her eyes fixed on his back. "What's your name?" she asked softly. Ye Chuan didn't stop walking. His voice was calm, almost cold. Once they stepped outside, the fresh air of the forest rushed in. Ye Chuan pointed toward the distance. "Once you're out of the cave, head in that direction. You can get back to the city." His feet moved swiftly, his figure blurring as he disappeared into the shadows of the forest, leaving only the sound of his footsteps behind. The girl stood at the cave entrance, her heart pounding. "Ye Chuan," she whispered, peeking out from behind a tree, her face flushed red as she watched him walking ahead. She couldn't help but quietly follow. But suddenly, Ye Chuan turned around. His eyes were sharp, his voice cold. "Why are you following me? Are you a spy sent by the goblins?" He grabbed her collar, his knife flashing dangerously close. The girl screamed in terror. Her hands shook as she frantically waved them. No, I'm just scared to go back alone." Ye Chuan narrowed his eyes, studying her carefully. "I see. What's your name? And why are you here?" he asked in a low voice. The girl lowered her head and whispered softly, "My name is Zia Nanan. My mother's birthday is in a few days. I wanted to find a blood moon flower as a gift for her, but I didn't expect to be captured by goblins." Her voice trembled as she spoke, shame and fear still lingering on her face. Ye Chuan stayed silent for a moment. Then she looked up at him with a glimmer of hope. "How about we make a deal?" she said. He raised a brow, waiting for her to continue. "If you help me find the blood moon flower," Zia Nanan said firmly, "I'll help you find the best weaponsmith in Qingcheng to forge a new knife for you." Zia Nanan walked beside Ye Chuan, still trying to convince him. "Do you have any idea how much it costs for the best weaponsmith in Qingcheng to forge a knife?" she asked, her tone a little proud. But Ye Chuan only gave her a cold glance. "Go back. Stop following me or I'll chop you." His words were as sharp as his blade. Zia Nanan froze, shocked. Inside she fumed. "I'm a great beauty by any measure. How can this kid be so cold to me?" Her hands went to her waist, annoyed. Is there something wrong with his head? Not giving up, she quickly stepped closer. "Hey, do you know who I am? My dad's name is Xia Beihai," she said loudly, trying to impress him. Ye Chuan suddenly stopped walking. His eyes narrowed, and he muttered to himself, "Xia Beihai." He remembered. The Xia family, one of the 4 great noble families of Qingcheng. Xia Beihai, its head, was a 9th-rank master realm transcendent, only 1 step away from becoming a grandmaster. Ye Chuan's eyes gleamed darkly, a crooked smile tugging at his lips. "For real?" he muttered, a strange light flickering in his gaze. If that's true, he thought, then with her father's wealth, forging 10 top-tier butcher knives for me would be no problem at all. Zia Nanan, not noticing the change in his expression, proudly held up a jade amulet that shimmered faintly. "This is the Xia family's protective amulet. My father gave it to me, it shields me from harm," she explained with a bright smile. She puffed out her chest slightly, her voice confident. "Even a transcendent expert couldn't harm me. But those goblins, they were cunning and treacherous. I was caught only because they ambushed me." Her face grew pale as she remembered, her grip tightening on the amulet. "But they couldn't get close to me, which is why they only locked me up." Her voice lowered to a trembling whisper. "Otherwise I might have long been." She stopped, her words choking, her eyes moist with fear. Ye Chuan's gaze flicked to the amulet. This thing really is a product of the Xia family. He mused, his expression unreadable. Ye Chuan finally nodded, his tone calm but firm. All right, I believe you. I'll help you find the blood moon flower. In return, you'll help me get a top-tier knife forged. Xia Nanan blinked, stunned for a moment. Then her face lit up with joy and she clapped her hands together. Deal, she said happily, smiling from ear to ear. Without wasting time, Xia Nanan pulled something out from her clothes. This is a map, she explained, holding it carefully. I bought it from someone else. It shows the place where the blood moon flower can be found. Xia Nanan spread the map open, her finger pointing at a red X. This marks the location of the blood moon flower, she explained. But then her tone grew serious. Where there's a blood moon flower, there's also a blood moon great python. It's very dangerous. Ye Chuan raised an eyebrow. A giant python? She nodded quickly. Yes, according to the Wilderness Survival Guide, the blood moon great python has strength equal to a 9th rank apprentice. I don't know if my power alone is enough to face it. Ye Chuan went silent for a moment, his hand resting on his chin. Then, a strange grin spread across his face. His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. I've never seen a giant python in my whole life, he said, almost too eagerly. Xia Nanan glanced at him, her brows furrowed. Is this guy even listening to me? She thought. But then she remembered the way he had single-handedly wiped out an entire goblin tribe. Her doubts wavered. No, if he can do that, then he must be a god-level combat profession. Someone like that isn't ordinary at all. Ye Chuan suddenly clapped his hands together with a sharp grin. Let's go. You'll lead the way from here. She blinked, stunned. I don't know why. Her heart thumped in confusion as she studied him. This guy gives off the strangest feeling, somehow both reliable and unreliable at the same time. The two crouched low in the tall grass, purple streaks of light flickering across the sky. Xia Nanan leaned forward, her eyes sharp. That's a silver-horned rhinoceros, she whispered. We absolutely must not provoke it. Through the grass, the massive beast came into view, its silver horn glinting with a deadly glow. Muscles rippled under its thick skin as it pawed the ground. Once it gets enraged, its strength is equal to an 8th rank apprentice, she warned. Her voice dropped. We just need to quietly go around it. But then she froze, her eyes widening. Ye Chuan was already standing, pulling out his massive butcher's knife. Her heart skipped a beat. What are you doing? She hissed in shock. Ye Chuan raised his butcher's knife, his eyes flashing with madness. If it dares to eat grass today, he declared, it will dare to eat people tomorrow. It cannot be left alive. Xia Nanan nearly fell over in shock. What kind of reasoning is that? She cried, her face pale. But before she could stop him, Ye Chuan lunged. His body cut through the air like a shadow, his knife gleaming under the moonlight. The massive silver-horned rhino roared, its horn slicing through the ground as it charged. The earth shook under its weight. Yet Ye Chuan was faster. Twisting midair, he raised his blade high and came crashing down like a thunderbolt. The knife glowed with a deadly aura as it split through the beast's thick hide. Blood sprayed in every direction as the rhino let out a final, deafening roar. In one clean strike, the monster collapsed. The silver-horned rhino crashed to the ground, its massive body shaking the earth. Dust and blood filled the air as silence followed the beast's final roar. Xia Nanan slowly stepped out from the grass, her eyes wide in disbelief. He killed it in one strike, she muttered, staring at the fallen creature. The beast's green eyes were already dull. Its horn lay buried in the dirt, blood pooling around its lifeless body. Her lips trembled as reality hit her. A creature powerful enough to rival an 8th rank apprentice taken down in a single blow by his butcher knife. She swallowed hard, her gaze flicking toward him. Just what kind of monster is this man? As the dust settled, a glowing blue screen appeared in front of Ye Chuan. System prompt, level increased to 7th rank apprentice. Successfully slain, silver-horned rhinoceros. Pig clan nemesis bonus damage increased by 122%. Ye Chuan stood there, staring at the message with a calm face. He slowly raised his butcher knife, its edge already chipped from the battle. I don't know how much longer this knife will hold up, he muttered quietly. Beside him, Xia Nanan couldn't hold back anymore. She looked at him with wide, trembling eyes. Ye Chuan, what on earth is your profession? He turned his head slightly, his voice steady. A life-type profession, pig butcher. Her jaw dropped. Impossible. How could a life-type profession kill a silver-horned rhinoceros in one hit? Ye Chuan bent down beside the dead beast. With a calm expression, he cut off the massive horn. The rhino horn is good stuff, he muttered, slipping it into his bag. Then he glanced at the body and added, this rhino was probably just too old. That's why it died so quickly. Sia Nanan watched him carefully, her lips parting in surprise. His tone was so casual, as if killing a silver-horned rhino was nothing special. After a moment she spoke, her eyes wide. We're almost there. The location of the blood moon flower is very close. She looked at Ye Chuan again, doubt in her eyes, yet his calm face made her hesitate. This kid, he looks like he's not lying. The two of them walked side by side into the deep forest. The tall trees cast long shadows around them, and the silence of the night pressed heavily on their shoulders. Step by step, they drew closer to their true goal. At the same time, a different group appeared, not just anyone, but his old classmates who had once graduated with him. They were not alone. Their professor walked at the front, leading them. Among them was Ling Xuan, the blue-haired girl, and Liu Jinglong, the red-haired boy, both moving steadily along the path. Their professor turned to them and spoke. For this field training you have all performed well, he said in a firm voice. His students followed behind him with pride. He looked at them one by one. You are truly the students I think highly of. Liu Jinglong smirked proudly, while Ling Xuan remained calm and serious. But suddenly the professor's eyes narrowed. He raised his hand to stop the group. Wait, there's movement. The air around them turned tense, as if danger was about to strike. The old man's sharp voice echoed through the forest. Who's there? Come out! Everyone turned their heads. From the shadows, two figures slowly appeared. Step by step, Ye Chuan and Sia Nanan walked out of the misty trees. The light of the moon shone on them, making their presence even more striking. The students looked surprised. Ye Chuan's calm eyes scanned the group while Sia Nanan stood silently by his side. Inside, Ye Chuan thought, why are these guys here? The silence broke when Liu Jinglong suddenly laughed loudly. Ye Chuan, why is it you? What are you doing here? He pointed at him with a mocking smile.
What did you say? Before Yu Chuan could answer again, a woman from the group stepped forward with a smirk. Just passing by, she said, her tone full of doubt. The way I see it, her voice trailed off as suspicion filled the air. The rest of the group narrowed their eyes, staring at Yi Chuan and Xia Nanan beside him. One of the students sneered, pointing at Yi Chuan. You still can't get over Sister Ling Xuan, right? So you followed us here like a sticky pest. Ling Xuan lowered her head in silence, but in Yi Chuan's eyes, her proud face twisted into something ugly, like the face of a pig. Yi Chuan, she finally spoke, her voice cold. Yi Chuan's eyes turned sharp. His tone was steady, yet filled with power. I think I made myself very clear last time. He stepped forward, his shadow stretching across the ground. We are people from two different worlds now. Stop pestering me. His voice echoed through the forest, carrying both anger and finality. Liu Jinglong burst into laughter, his voice dripping with mockery. Yi Chuan, you still dare to show your face in front of me? Great. I was just worried I wouldn't be able to find you. His laughter echoed through the forest, sharp and cruel. But then from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. A dark aura exploded around him, swirling like a storm. His eyes glowed blood red, and a twisted smile stretched across his face. In his hand, a blade burned with eerie purple flames. At that moment, the air grew heavy. The hunter had just become the prey. The crowd gasped as Liu Jinglong drew his weapon. The sword in his hand glowed with a terrifying purple light, radiating immense power. One of the men shouted in shock, Brother Jinglong's sword. That shine, could it already be yellow rank, low grade? This is a true spirit weapon. Even the older man watching from the side was stunned. In just a few short days, Liu Jinglong, already a 4th rank apprentice, has obtained a yellow rank, low grade spirit weapon. I was right about him. This kid is a genius. With this strength, he could fight evenly with a 6th rank apprentice. The tension in the forest grew heavier. Then, Ling Xuan finally spoke. Her eyes were cold, her voice sharp like ice. Yi Chuan, I warned you before to leave Qingsheng. This time, I will not step in to help you again. Purple energy swirled around her as she stood proudly beside Jinglong. Her meaning clear, Yi Chuan was on his own. The girl beside him, Xia Nanan, looked at him nervously and whispered Yi Chuan, do you have a grudge with these people? Yi Chuan didn't answer her question. Instead, his calm voice asked something completely different. How much is a yellow rank, low-grade spirit weapon worth? Xia Nanan's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what he had just said. What? At least several 100,000. She grabbed his arm in panic. Hey, do you even understand the current situation? This isn't the time to talk about money. But Yi Chuan's face remained cold, his eyes locked on the glowing weapon in his enemy's hand. To him, it wasn't a threat, it was just profit waiting to be taken. Liu Jinglong's eyes burned with anger. That guy last time, he stole all the spotlight. His grip tightened around the glowing sword, its edge flashing with deadly light. But this time, he rushed forward, killing intent bursting from his body. I must steal it back. With a furious roar, Liu Jinglong leapt high into the air, his blade raised above his head. The spirit weapon gleamed as it cut through the night sky, crashing straight toward Yi Chuan. The crowd gasped in shock, their eyes widening as Liu Jinglong's power exploded. My true strength. He roared at the top of his lungs. Purple energy surged around the giant blade as it descended with terrifying force. Sparks flew, and the ground split open beneath the strike. But he wasn't finished. What's a stinking pig butcher like you being so arrogant for? He shouted with fury. I'll make sure you can't even butcher a pig in the future. The spirit weapon glowed with deadly brilliance, ready to cut Yi Chuan down once and for all. The old man's eyes narrowed. An ordinary blade is as weak as paper in front of a spirit weapon. Oh, Yi Chuan, why would you provoke him like this? Everyone thought Yi Chuan was reckless, but he stood calmly, his face unreadable. Then, with a faint smirk, he said, I don't need a knife to deal with you. His opponent froze for a moment, eyes widening in disbelief. What? You're still not convinced? Liu Jinglong growled, his voice trembling with rage. Veins bulged on his forehead as killing intent poured from his eyes. Fine then, don't blame me for not being polite. With another furious roar, Liu Jinglong raised his glowing spirit blade high. Die, he screamed, bringing it down with all his strength. The ground trembled under the force, purple energy swirling like a storm. But Yi Chuan didn't step back. His eyes flashed coldly. In the next instant, his fist shot forward like lightning. His punch slammed into Liu Jinglong's chest, the air shaking as shockwaves exploded outward. Liu Jinglong's body flew like a broken arrow, crashing into the ground and rolling helplessly across the dirt. Brother Jinglong, someone shouted in horror, rushing toward him. Liu Jinglong lay battered on the ground, his chest burning with pain. A friend hurried over, grabbing his shoulders in panic. Are you all right? He shouted. Jinglong groaned, blood dripping from his lips. His voice broke with pain as he cried out. Forcing himself to sit up, he clenched his teeth. I'm all right, he lied, sweat pouring down his face. But inside, he knew the truth. I'm about to pass out. I have to hold on. The battlefield fell silent. All eyes turned toward Yi Chuan, the young man who had just crushed Liu Jinglong with a single strike. From the crowd, the old man stepped forward, his sharp gaze fixed on Yi Chuan. His voice was low, but it carried immense weight. Yi Chuan, he said, his tone filled with disbelief. He looked at Jinglong, still groaning in pain on the ground, then back at the calm figure standing tall. His eyes narrowed, as if trying to solve a mystery. Have you already, he paused, his words heavy with shock, reached the level of a 7th-rank apprentice? The crowd gasped. No one expected it. Yi Chuan, the one mocked as nothing more than a butcher, now stood revealed as a monster far beyond their imagination. Yi Chuan slowly bent down, his hand closing around the fallen blade. The weapon was heavy, stained with blood, its edge still gleaming faintly. He lifted it, staring at it calmly. This knife actually looks pretty good, he muttered, almost amused. At the side, one of the men shouted in disbelief. Did that kid really reach 7th rank apprentice? That's impossible. Even Ling Xuan is only at the 6th rank. The old man narrowed his eyes and explained in a calm voice. It's possible. The realm divisions may be the same for both lifestyle and combat professions, but the way they level up is completely different. Images flashed through everyone's minds. Fighters training day and night, fists striking wooden dummies, legs smashing through solid posts. Combat professions, he continued, must fight, bleed, and master countless techniques in the early stages. That's why their growth is slower at first. Then his tone grew heavier, almost solemn. But once they break through, their growth accelerates, faster and faster with every step. He paused, glancing at Yi Chuan before adding, lifestyle professions, on the other hand, have it much easier. Alchemists, blacksmiths, they don't need to fight. All they need to do is pour their focus into their craft. The crowd fell silent. The difference between the professions was now clear, but Yi Chuan's rapid rise remained a mystery. The elder pointed at Yi Chuan. Take Yi Chuan, for example. As a pig butcher, all he needs to do is slaughter pigs again and again, day after day. That alone is enough to raise his realm in the early stages. Everyone's eyes widened as an image of Yi Chuan flashed in their minds, his apron dark, his knife glowing red, striking down pigs with terrifying precision. The blue-haired girl, Ling Xuan, frowned, her voice sharp. So he's only relying on the stats from his higher realm? Isn't that unfair to combat professions? The old man explained further. Every time Yi Chuan advances, the number of pigs he needs to kill doubles. By the time he reaches the Ascension realm, the number required will be astronomical. But combat professions, once they master their techniques, their growth becomes faster and faster. Another student whispered nervously, so you're saying right now, he can defeat Jinglong because of his higher realm. But in a few years, combat professions will surpass him completely. The old man's face turned serious. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yi Chuan waved his hand casually, looking as if nothing had happened. If there's nothing else, I'll be going now. Everyone stared in shock at his carefree attitude. He had just fought and leveled up, yet he looked as though it didn't matter at all. But then, Ling Xuan stepped forward, her blue eyes filled with frustration. Yi Chuan, why must you go to such lengths? She demanded, her voice trembling. Did you really go through all that trouble, killing pigs every single day, just to level up and show off to me? Yi Chuan stood there silently as Ling Xuan's words cut deep. But instead of answering, he simply sighed and said, I'll be honest with you. I've already been guaranteed a spot at Sky Dome Academy. We're in different worlds now. His calm tone carried no emotion, but the meaning behind his words was heavy. Before anyone could respond, Xiananan, her eyes fiery with emotion, stepped forward. I can't just stand by and watch this, she shouted, her voice sharp. Everyone turned to look at her. She clenched her fists and glared. Are you people ever going to stop? Yi Chuan was helping me search for the blood moon flower. Running into you guys was just our bad luck. She stood tall, her anger burning like fire. So tell me, what nonsense are you making up in your heads? As soon as Yi Chuan's friends spoke up, mocking voices cut through the night. A girl sneered loudly, her face twisted with disgust. Oh my, so someone actually treasures the scumbag Su Ling dumped? You must be blind. Another boy quickly added, his tone sharp and cruel. Exactly. This Yi Chuan has no other skills, but he's sure good at picking up women. Found a new one so fast too. Bitch and a dog. What a perfect match. Their laughter echoed, dripping with venom. Before anyone could reply, a sudden crack rang out. The girl who had insulted Yi Chuan was sent flying backward, her body spinning through the air. The crowd froze in shock. Even the old man who had been speaking earlier was left clutching his face, a fresh red mark burning on his cheek. He looked around with wide, confused eyes. Why did you hit me too? He stammered, his voice trembling between fear and disbelief. Xiananan crossed her arms and let out an angry huff. She stood in front of Yi Chuan, her face full of defiance. But then Ling Xuan touched her cheek where the slap had landed. Her eyes went cold, and her voice trembled with rage. You dare hit me? She growled, her expression twisting in fury. Her body began to glow with a powerful aura. Energy surged around her as she pulled out a sharp blade. Are you looking to die? She shouted, her killing intent filling the air. Yi Chuan lifted the glowing token high and said coldly, I dare you to touch me. The power in his voice made the entire place fall silent. Suddenly, the old man stepped forward, panic written across his face. Wait, stop, he shouted, blocking the furious Ling Xuan. His eyes widened as recognition dawned. No wonder this girl looks familiar, she's the young lady of the Xia family. At once, his tone changed. He forced a smile and bowed respectfully. Miss Xia, what are you doing here? The brown-haired girl, Xiananan, crossed her arms and gave him a sharp look. It's none of your business. I'll go wherever I want. Her eyes narrowed as she glared at him. But you, Principal Zhao, the quality of your students really leaves something to be desired. Cold sweat ran down the old man's face. He laughed nervously, bowing repeatedly. Yes, it's my fault. I'll be sure to discipline them properly when we return. The brown-haired girl, Xiananan, suddenly pointed at Ling Xuan and shouted with authority, Make her apologize to Yi Chuan. Ling Xuan froze, her eyes widening. She thought, shocked. She, Xia Beihai's daughter, her fists trembled. Why is she with Yi Chuan of all people? Principal Zhao's face darkened. He barked angrily, hurry up and apologize. Did you hear me? Ling Xuan bit her lip, humiliation burning in her chest. Finally, she lowered her head and forced the words out. I'm sorry. But as she turned away, her eyes were filled with rage. The Xia family, just you wait. Yi Chuan waved his hand calmly. Let's go, or we'll miss the bus. He didn't even look back, as if nothing had happened. Xiananan followed closely behind him. Suddenly, a loud voice came from behind. Get back here. Give me back my Qingfang saber. It was the red-haired boy, Jing Long, his face twisted with anger. He pointed at Yi Chuan and shouted as he charged forward. Yi Chuan turned his head slightly. His eyes were cold. If you've got the guts, come and take it back yourself. I'll be waiting, he said calmly. Jing Long froze, his body shaking with rage. Veins bulged on his forehead as he screamed, you. But Yi Chuan had already walked away, ignoring him completely. Jing Long clenched his fists, grinding his teeth, then roared into the empty forest. You just wait. The forest grew darker as Yi Chuan and the girl walked further. Dry branches twisted above them like claws, and the path narrowed along a rocky cliffside. The air was heavy, almost warning them of danger. The brown-haired girl, Xiananan, pulled out a folded map from her clothes. The paper caught the faint light, glowing softly. She studied it closely, her eyes widening. This must be the place, she said seriously. We need to be careful. On the map, a red X was drawn, and beside it was a sketch of a snake, its fangs bared. Yi Xuan glanced at the knife in his hand as a blue light light flashed before his eyes. A system notification appeared: exclusive pig butchering knife selected. God-slaying edge is now in effect. Every pig killed with this knife grants you .2 free attribute points. He raised an eyebrow. Luff .2. It doubled. Looks like choosing the right weapon really makes a difference. As he thought that, the girl beside him reached into her clothes and pulled out 2 glowing orbs, one red, one blue. Yi Chuan blinked in disbelief, his expression stiffening. "What do you have in there, a treasure chest?" "What is this?" he asked, eyes widening. Xiananan smiled proudly. "These are called Thunderfire Pearls. Even an expert from the Ascension realm would be badly injured if hit by one. When the Blood Moon Serpent appears, these could be our lifeline." Yi Chuan looked at her and sighed. "You're really something else," he said with a faint smile. "I'll go up and take a look first." With the heavy knife in his hand, he leapt forward. His body sliced through the air and landed firmly on the rocky ground ahead. Dust and moonlight scattered around him as his boots touched down. The ground beneath him was blanketed with bright red flowers. Their petals glowed like fire under the moonlight. Yi Chuan's eyes widened. "It's really here," he muttered. Xiananan leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "And this isn't just an ordinary blood moon flower. It's a blood crystal twin flower. Wow, we're so lucky." But her excitement froze in an instant. Cold sweat ran down her cheek as a shadow loomed behind Yi Chuan. From the darkness, 2 glowing red eyes emerged, burning like fire. A massive serpent's head slowly rose, its scales glimmering black and purple, its body coiling through the mist. The Blood Moon Serpent had awakened. Yi Chuan stood still, the freshly picked flower in his hand. The monster's killing intent pressed down like a storm, yet his expression didn't change. The serpent roared, its breath shaking the ground, its crimson eyes locked onto him. Yi Chuan looked up, completely unfazed. "What are you looking at?" he said coolly. "Never seen someone pick a flower before?" The serpent's blazing red eyes narrowed, a low hiss echoing like thunder through the canyon. Its massive head leaned forward, confused for a moment, as if asking, "What are you doing with my flower?" Yi Chuan didn't flinch. He casually held the glowing flower in one hand and the black blade in the other. Without hesitation, he turned and sprinted across the cliff, the serpent's burning gaze tracking his every move. From behind, Xiananan shouted nervously, "Don't just stand there stupidly. Hurry up." Her voice cracked with panic. The ground shook as the serpent shifted, its massive shadow swallowing the rocks around them. Xiananan's eyes widened. She could already sense the monster's killing intent rising. "Be careful," she screamed, clutching the Thunderfire Pearls tightly in her hands, ready to throw them at a moment's notice. But Yi Chuan, his steps never slowed. His back was straight, his eyes calm, as if he wasn't facing a legendary beast, but just another obstacle in his path. The serpent roared, its red eyes glowing brighter, and lunged forward. Yi Chuan leaped high into the air, his blade shining, ready to strike. At the same time, Xiananan hurled a glowing bead, the Thunderfire Pearl, straight at the monster's face. Boom! The explosion shook the entire cliff. A wave of fire and shock hit Yi Chuan midair, knocking him back. "Wah!" he cried as his body spun uncontrollably before crashing to the ground. Dust and rocks scattered everywhere. "Yi Chuan, are you all right?" Xiananan shouted, panic filling her voice as she ran toward him. Yi Chuan groaned, pushing himself up. His clothes were torn, but his eyes remained sharp. He looked toward the giant serpent, which had stopped in its tracks. Even the beast seemed surprised. Smoke curled from its scales as it hissed angrily, glaring at them. "That bead," Yi Chuan muttered, watching the lingering sparks in the air. It had such destructive power. The girl clutched another Thunderfire Pearl tightly in her hand, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She looked at him and said, "This is our chance. If we use them well, we might survive." The battle paused for a brief moment. Yi Chuan reached out and handed the glowing flower to the girl. "Here, take it," he said. Her eyes sparkled as she held it carefully. "Blood crystal twin flower," she gasped, her voice full of wonder. Curious, she looked up at him and asked, "By the way, what's this flower even used for?" Yi Chuan's gaze remained steady as he explained, "The blood crystal twin flower is a mutated form of the blood moon flower. Normal blood moon flowers can slow aging, but this one is different. This flower can grant eternal youth." The girl's mouth fell open in shock. Her hands trembled as she stared at the glowing petals. His words echoed in her mind, eternal youth. Which woman in the world wouldn't dream of such timeless beauty? Yi Chuan stood up slowly, leaning on his black sword for support. His face was calm, but a faint smile crossed his lips. "I see," he said softly. Then, with a rare warmth in his voice, he added, "Mom will definitely love this." As Yi Chuan leapt back toward the cliffside, the girl's eyes followed the glowing flower in his hand. "Do you mean to give the other one to me?" she asked hopefully. Yi Chuan's lips curved faintly. "Hey, this brat finally figured it out," he thought, glancing at the second blood crystal twin flower. He slipped it quickly into his backpack, just in time. Hiss. The chilling sound ripped through the air, sharp and venomous. The ground trembled as a towering shadow rose before them. Glowing scarlet eyes pierced the haze. The monstrous serpent, larger and more menacing than before, slithered forward. Its scales shimmered with violet-black light, and its breath oozed with killing intent. Yi Chuan tightened his grip on his sword. Across the chasm, Xia Nanan stood frozen within the serpent's suffocating aura. Her eyes widened in disbelief. It actually survived a direct hit from a thunderfire bead, she gasped. Her face grew pale as cold sweat rolled down her cheek. Impossible. Even a beast at this level shouldn't have survived that. She clenched her fists tightly and continued. This Blood Moon Python, even if it hasn't reached the climbing pond realm yet, its strength is already close to the peak of a 9th rank apprentice. On the opposite cliff, Yi Chuan steadied his stance, sword in hand, staring at the giant serpent as it loomed over them with burning red eyes. Do you have more beads? He shouted across the gap. His voice tense, Xia Nanan shook her head quickly, panic rising in her voice. My dad only gave me 1 pair. The Blood Moon Python reared back, its eyes blazing like molten fire. A thunderous hiss shook the canyon walls, sending cracks splintering through the rocks beneath their feet. Yi Chuan stood unmoving, his gaze locked with the serpent's. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as a blue system window flickered into existence before him. His aura changed instantly. The air around him grew heavy, the faint scent of bloodlust spreading like a storm. Even the giant python's burning gaze reflected his figure, 2 silhouettes of Yi Chuan, sharp and merciless, staring back from within its scarlet pupils. The beast let out another furious roar, its massive body coiling like a mountain of muscle before it struck. The ground quaked as it lunged forward with terrifying speed. Yi Chuan, what are you standing there for? Xia Nanan screamed, panic flooding her voice. She tugged at his arm desperately. Run! Xia Nanan, her face flushed and her voice filled with emotion, leaned toward him and shouted, Of course I'm waiting for you. After all, you risked your life to pick the other blood crystal flower for me. Her eyes sparkled with hope, truly believing Yi Chuan had done it all for her. But Yi Chuan's expression didn't change. His voice was calm, almost cold, as he replied, That's for my mom. For a moment, silence filled the air. Xia Nanan's eyes widened. Her smile froze, twisting into disbelief. What? She screamed, her voice cracking. Before she could say more, the Blood Moon Python roared, its mouth gaping wide to reveal rows of gleaming fangs and glowing red eyes. The ground shook under its rage. Yi Chuan and Xia Nanan turned and sprinted, but the monstrous beast was already closing the distance. It's over. Too late, the girl cried, terror in her voice. Yi Chuan grabbed her hand and pulled her along, irritation flashing in his eyes. Bringing this woman along is such a hassle, he thought grimly. The python lunged forward with terrifying speed, its massive jaws snapping shut. The impact sent a violent shockwave through the air. Xia Nanan was flung upward, spinning helplessly before crashing hard onto the rocky ground. The serpent's red eyes locked onto Yi Chuan. With another furious roar, it charged straight toward him, its killing intent thick enough to choke the air. From the ground, Xia Nanan looked up in horror, her face pale. Yi Chuan, she screamed, her voice trembling with fear. She stood frozen, her body shaking as the colossal shadow of the python fell over her. Its forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air, ready to strike Yi Chuan. Did you hear me? Come out quickly, she screamed, her voice trembling with panic. The beast lunged forward, its massive jaws opening wide, rows of sharp fangs glinting with murderous intent. She shut her eyes, bracing for death. But in that instant, a blinding flash of light cut through the darkness. Slash blood sprayed through the air as the python roared in agony. Xia Nanan gasped, eyes wide. The monstrous serpent thrashed violently, raining blood like a crimson storm. And then, from within the beast's gaping wound, a figure slowly stepped out, drenched in scarlet. It was Yi Chuan. His cold eyes glowed faintly as he gripped his blade, his voice calm and steady. Were you calling me just now? He asked, wiping the blood from his mouth as if nothing had happened. Xia Nanan's eyes filled with tears of relief. She threw herself into Yi Chuan's arms, hugging him tightly. You're safe. Thank goodness. I don't want anyone dying because of me, she said, her voice shaking. Yi Chuan stood stiff, his expression awkward. He wasn't used to this kind of sudden closeness. Then the girl suddenly pulled back, covering her nose with both hands. Her face twisted in disgust. Ugh, that stench. You were this close to being digested and turned into python dung, she exclaimed, almost gagging. Yi Chuan just stared at her, sweat sliding down the side of his face. He sighed quietly, thinking to himself that she seemed more worried about the smell than the fact he'd just cut his way out of a giant monster. As he caught his breath, a glowing blue screen flickered before his eyes. Defeated a special beast level increased by 80%. Title acquired. Nemesis of the Serpent Clan. Extra damage plus 1%, gained 0.2 free attribute points. Yi Chuan's expression remained calm, but inside, a spark of satisfaction stirred. His strength was steadily growing. going. Let's head back, he said simply, turning toward the forest path. The girl nodded quickly, still shaken from the fight. Together, they made their way toward the city gates. As soon as they passed through the archway, several people rushed forward to meet them. Miss Ya, why are you only just returning? One of them shouted, his voice full of worry. An elder greeted her with a worried face. You had me so worried, he said, sighing in relief. I was about to send people to search for you. Miss Ya quickly smiled and held out the glowing flower in her hands. We found this. Mother will surely be delighted, she said happily, her face shining with excitement. The elder frowned deeply, his tone stern. If Miss wished for a blood crystal flower, you could have ordered the servants to find it. Outside the city is too dangerous. If something had happened to you, Miss Ye shook her head quickly, holding the flower close to her chest. I wanted to pick it personally for my mother. Besides, with his protection, there was no problem, she said firmly, pointing toward Yi Chuan. The elder's sharp eyes turned to the boy. His voice grew heavy. And this young man is. Yi Chuan stood silently, his expression calm under the elder's scrutinizing gaze. Then, in a steady voice, he replied, I am Yi Chuan Pig Butcher. The elder narrowed his eyes, studying him carefully. Wherever there are blood crystal flowers, a blood moon python will appear. Why would Miss Xia choose a mere butcher to protect her, he thought. But looking at him now, could it be he really did slay the blood moon python? His doubt slowly gave way to a hint of respect. Student Yi is truly remarkable at such a young age, the elder said aloud. Then he reached into his sleeve and produced a golden ring, holding it forward. This Xia clan gold ring is worth 200,000. Please, accept it as thanks for saving our young lady. Yi Chuan looked at the ring, but his expression didn't change. Calmly, he shook his head. No, he said firmly. I only want a pig slaughtering blade. The elder blinked in surprise. A pig slaughtering blade? He thought to himself. He doesn't want any treasures, only a pig slaughtering blade. Is this boy a bit crazy? Before he could say more, Miss Ya stepped forward. Uncle Zhao, she said quickly, Yi Chuan wants Qingqing's best weapon forger to craft him a spirit weapon. That's what I promised him. Uncle. Zhao looked at her, then at Yi Chuan. After a moment, his expression softened. I understand, young lady, he said kindly. Leave this matter to me. Let them escort you home. Your father is worried sick. Miss Ya turned around with a bright smile. Yi Chuan, I'll come find you again, she said cheerfully, waving her hand as she walked away with her guards. Yi Chuan didn't answer. He simply nodded, his calm eyes following her until she disappeared beyond the gate. Uncle Zhao stayed behind for a moment. His tone turned serious. Student Yi Chuan, he said, although you saved our young lady and we're willing to grant you any request, there's only one thing. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Please don't harbor any improper thoughts toward our young lady. Otherwise, things will end badly for everyone. Yi Chuan looked at him. In his mind, Miss Ya's face suddenly turned into that of a pig's head. He sighed inwardly. In my eyes, your young lady is just another pig head. Then he said aloud, no problem. I promise not to get involved with your young lady. I only want a top-tier spirit weapon. Uncle Zhao's expression softened again. He turned and started walking toward the light at the end of the tunnel. Qingqing's greatest forger, Master Tai Xin, has a close relationship with our Xia family, he said. I'll inform him when I return. Tomorrow, just go find him directly. Yi Chuan bowed his head slightly. Understood. Meanwhile, the sky flashed with streaks of violet light, slicing through the clouds like blades. Birds scattered in panic as the forest below trembled. On the ground, several fierce beasts lay dead, their bodies twisted, their fur matted with blood. The air was thick with a crimson mist that clung to the trees. From the shadows stepped a tall woman with long green hair and curved horns rising from her head. Her golden eyes burned with fury. She wore a black and gold outfit that shimmered ominously in the red light. She gazed down at the fallen monsters, her fists tightening. You killed my beast and stole my Lingji, she hissed. This human really has guts. Her voice echoed through the forest, cold, sharp, and dangerous. She hissed. This human really has guts. Her voice echoed through the forest, cold, sharp, and dangerous. She stepped forward, her bare feet leaving glowing marks on the ground. The wind began to swirl violently around her as a dark smile curled her lips. I'll remember your scent, she whispered, her tongue sliding out like a serpent's. A surge of crimson energy erupted from her body, forming a storm of blood and rage. Even the nearby creatures lowered their heads, trembling in submission. The woman slowly rose into the air, surrounded by swirling red mist, her golden eyes burning brighter than ever. Inside the city, Yi Chuan walked quietly through the crowded streets, a sword strapped to his back and a worn backpack slung over his shoulder. He stopped in front of a small shop with a weathered sign that read, "Buying beast materials at high prices." Without hesitation, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. The shopkeeper, a woman with neatly tied brown hair, looked up as he entered. Yi Chuan placed something heavy on the counter, a large, curved horn faintly glowing with purple energy. "Hello," he said simply. "I'd like to sell beast materials." The woman's eyes widened for a moment, then a surprised smile curved her lips. Kid, I didn't expect someone so skinny to take down a silver-horned rhino. She laughed. We can recycle this for 10,000 coins. Yu Xuan froze. His eyes widened. In his mind, he quickly compared the numbers. Dad earns only 100 coins for slaughtering one pig. This single rhino horn equals 100 pigs. A drop of sweat rolled down his cheek. He could hardly believe it. Inside the weapon shop, Yu Xuan's eyes swept across the rows of gleaming weapons and armor behind the glass cases. He pointed toward a golden vest displayed proudly at the center. Can 10,000 coins buy this? He asked, his voice calm yet curious. The shopkeeper blinked, then smiled slyly. Kid, you've got good eyes, she said, walking over. She gestured to the vest. This golden-scaled soft armor is crafted from the scales of a fire-claw serpent. Its defense is remarkable, resistant to both heat and cold. Unfortunately, she sighed dramatically. Good things are always expensive. This one costs 150,000 coins. Yi Chuan's jaw dropped. 150,000. My dad would have to slaughter 1,500 pigs non-stop to earn that much. The woman tilted her head, puzzled. Pig slaughter? But Yi Chuan didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his bag. His hand flashed with a faint purple glow as he placed a weapon on the counter. What if I trade this instead? The woman's eyes widened as a surge of spiritual energy pulsed through the shop. The blade on the counter radiated a powerful aura, its edge humming with light. This a yellow-grade, low-tier spirit weapon. Before she could even finish her sentence, Yi Chuan spoke calmly. Does that work? Her serious expression instantly melted into a bright, eager smile. Of course that works. She laughed, quickly helping him put on the armor. This golden-scaled soft armor looks practically custom-made for you. The golden vest shimmered against his black clothes, fitting perfectly across his shoulders. But as she tightened the straps, a sly thought flickered through her mind. This brat actually has so many treasures. He must be from a high-level combat class. Her lips curled slightly as she adjusted the armor. If I can hook this fool, maybe I'll never have to worry for the rest of my life. The woman's hands brushed across the golden armor, her eyes glittering with greed. Normally, exchanges require a 10,000 coin fee, she said with a sly smile, straightening the shining vest on Yi Chuan's chest. The golden scales gleamed softly under the light, each one reflecting her eager face. She leaned closer, her voice turning honey-sweet. But since you're so handsome, she said, her cheeks suddenly pink, I'll wave it for you. Just remember to thank me sometime, okay? Yi Chuan froze. For a brief moment, her face looked strange. Her smile stretched unnaturally wide, her features twisting. Then, to his shock, her face shifted, revealing a pig-like snout and flushed cheeks. She giggled oddly, still leaning far too close. By the way, kid, she asked, voice sugary and sly. What's your profession? Yi Chuan met her gaze with a calm, dead-serious expression. I'm a pig butcher. The woman blinked, her face draining of color. A pig butcher. Sweat trickled down her temple as she stumbled back, all traces of charm vanishing in an instant. Later that day, sunlight poured warmly over the tiled roofs of the Yi household. Yi Chuan stepped into the courtyard, his steps light with excitement. Mom, this is for you, he said cheerfully, holding out a glowing red flower. His mother turned, startled. Her eyes widened as she saw what he was holding. This is, she gasped, her hands trembling. A blood crystal twin flower? How did you get this? Yi Chuan scratched his head nervously. I didn't steal it. I just went outside the city and saw two giant snakes fighting. The flower fell to the ground, so I picked it up. His mother's expression softened, though her tone stayed firm. Yi Chuan outside the city is dangerous, she said, touching his cheek with a worried smile. Yi Chuan outside the city is dangerous, she said, touching his cheek with a worried smile. If something happened to you, what would we do? We're just pig butchers. We can't fight those beasts like the warriors can. You're not allowed to go outside again, she scolded gently. Yi Chuan rubbed his head with a sheepish grin. Got it, Mom. I won't go next time, he said softly. Before he could say more, a loud laugh echoed through the house. Ha 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 ha! That's my boy! Yi Chuan's father stepped in, a tall man with broad shoulders and a cheerful face. He placed a heavy hand on Yi Chuan's shoulder, his voice brimming with pride. Going outside and bringing back a blood crystal flower, you truly are my son. But before the moment could last, a loud and angry voice roared from outside. Yi Yuan, get out here. Yi Yuan frowned and stepped toward the doorway. Who's shouting at this hour? He muttered, irritation flickering in his eyes. When he stepped outside, his expression froze. Standing in front of the house was a tall man with fiery red hair and a deep scar running down his face. His sharp eyes blazed with fury. It was Liu Xing. Yi Yuan. Liu Xing bellowed again. I heard your son stole my Jinglong's azure blade. Yi Yuan's eyes widened. Liu Xing, he whispered in disbelief. His voice trembled slightly as he stepped forward. Brother Liu, you must be mistaken. He forced a smile, though cold sweat ran down his neck. Once, Liu Xing had been his closest friend. They had trained together as boys, hunted together in the forests. But that was long ago. Now Liu Xing was a powerful 6th rank cultivator, a man of high status and influence in Qingqing. They hadn't spoken in years. Yi Qiwan quickly raised his hands in a placating gesture. Brother Liu, please calm down. My son is just a pig butcher. How could he possibly steal your son's spirit weapon? Just then, a furious voice shouted from behind Liu Xing. Dad! It's him! Everyone turned to see Liu Jinglong, his arm still bandaged, glaring at Yi Chuan with hatred. Yi Chuan blinked in confusion and pointed at himself. Me, he asked softly. Liu Xing stepped closer, his voice dripping with anger and disappointment. Old friend, he said slowly, how can you still be so blind? You can't even teach your own son properly, and now he's stealing from others. Brother Liu, please. Yi Quan began, but Liu Xing cut him off coldly. I already confirmed it with Principal Zhao Ming before coming here. Liu Xing's glare turned cold as steel. In response to ask your son if it's true. Yi Qiwan hesitated, then turned to his son. Yi Chuan, what's going on? Yi Chuan looked uneasy at first, but then drew in a deep breath and met Liu Xing's gaze. Your son tried to kill me, he said firmly, pointing straight at Jinglong. I only took his blade. Honestly, I let him off easy. Jinglong's face turned bright red. He shouted furiously, nonsense! I never tried to kill you, I just wanted to spar. Liu Xing stepped forward again, his tone low and threatening. Brat, he said coldly, for your father's sake, I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the blade right now, and I won't pursue this matter any further. Yi Chuan stood there quietly, his expression calm, though his eyes gleamed with icy defiance. The blade? He repeated slowly. I already sold it. Liu Xing's face twisted in fury, his voice booming through the hall. What? Sold it? He clenched his fists, his aura flaring as his breathing grew harsh. Then, after a tense pause, a cruel smirk crept across his face. Good kid, he said, his voice dripping with mockery. In that case, compensate me with 1 million gold coins. Even Yi Chuan's father froze. His face went pale. Brother Liu, Yi Qiwan stammered, stepping forward quickly. 1 million is far too much. The market price for a yellow-grade, low-tier spirit weapon is barely 200,000. Liu Xing's face darkened, his eyes glowing faintly with a cold purple light. You don't think I'm negotiating with you, do you? Yi Qiwan's voice trembled as he tried to calm him. Wait, Brother Liu Xing, please don't be angry. We'll pay you, he said with a weak smile. But 1 million, that's no small amount. We'll need some time to gather it. Liu Xing crossed his arms, his smirk deepening. Old friend, he said mockingly, since you can't discipline your son, I'll gladly teach him a lesson for you. He turned slightly, his tone dark as thunder. I'll give you half a month to get the money. If you can't pay by then, his eyes narrowed dangerously. Don't blame me for turning hostile. Then he turned sharply and walked away. Behind him, Liu Jinglong lingered for a moment, smirking proudly. He shot a mocking glance back at Yi Chuan. Qiwan sat heavily on the couch, his face etched with worry. His wife's voice trembled with desperation. Wasn't he your childhood friend? Please, go and beg him properly, she pleaded. Her husband sighed deeply, his eyes full of guilt. Later, I'll bring some pork to his door and apologize, he said quietly. 1 million, that's too much. Just then, Yi Chuan walked in. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet resolve. Dad, don't worry, he said firmly. I'll handle this. His father looked up in surprise. Don't worry, son, he said softly. Your dad doesn't blame you. This wasn't your fault to begin with. He paused, his voice growing gentler. But if you ever face trouble again, don't hide it from us. Tell your mom and dad, all right? You don't have to carry everything alone. Yi Chuan clenched his fists tightly. His father's kind words struck deep in his heart. He lowered his head slightly, shadows crossing his eyes. I must get a spirit weapon soon, he thought, determination blazing in his chest. If I can reach the climbing pond realm, Liu Xing won't be my match. His mother glanced at him, worry written all over her face. Yes, Yi Chuan. She asked softly, are you hiding something from us? Yi Chuan lowered his gaze, his thoughts heavy. That flower, it was so rare and valuable. How could a pig butcher like me even find something like that? He took a deep breath, his expression calm but serious. Since that's the case, I can't keep this secret from them forever. Yi Chuan looked up at his parents solemnly. Dad, Mom, actually, I'm not normal. Both of them froze instantly. His mother's face went pale. Her lips trembled as she stammered. Son, you mean you don't like women? Yi Chuan blinked. His mind went blank. A single drop of sweat rolled down his cheek. Before he could say anything, his father jumped in nervously. Son, your mom is very open-minded, he said quickly, forcing a laugh. If you like men, that's fine too. Go after your happiness boldly. His mother nodded at once, smiling awkwardly. That's right. Yi Chuan's mom gently placed her hand on his cheek and said softly, as long as you stay away from your dad, it's fine. Both Yi Chuan and his dad froze. They looked at her, completely lost. Yi Chuan sighed and hurried to explain. No, Mom, I don't like women, and I don't like men either. He continued, "What I mean is, I have a bit of a mental condition. I see all living creatures as pigs." His parents blinked in shock. "All pigs?" they repeated in disbelief. Then realization struck his dad. His eyes went wide as he shouted, "Wait, you're a pig butcher, and you have a mental condition. That means you see every creature as a pig." Grabbing Yi Chuan's shoulders, he yelled even louder, "Then doesn't that mean you can treat everyone like a pig and kill them?" Yi Chuan stared at him with a blank face and simply said, "Yeah." After hearing everything, Yi Chuan's mom looked at her husband and said softly, "Husband, doesn't that mean Yi Chuan can also be counted as a combat class?" The man smiled proudly. "Yes, of course he can." He turned to his son and said firmly, "Yi Chuan, come with me. It's time I teach you some real skills." The two of them walked out into the cool night. Moonlight shone over the mountain path as they climbed higher and higher. "Your dad has slaughtered pigs for many years," the father said, his voice steady. "Over time, I created my own pig-killing blade technique." He looked at Yi Chuan with serious eyes. "Today, I'll pass it on to you. If someone ever tries to take your life again, you'll have a way to defend yourself." Yi Chuan hesitated and lowered his head. "Dad, I've already caused so much trouble. Our family is $1 million in debt because of me. Why are you still teaching me?" His father smiled gently and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Even though $1 million is a lot, it's nothing compared to my son's safety." His father slowly drew a large butcher's cleaver. The blade gleamed under the moonlight. "The great Tao is simple," he said in a calm, deep voice. "So is pig killing." He raised the cleaver, eyes sharp and focused. "Watch closely, Chuan. I'll only teach you 3 strikes." The air around them began to tremble. Purple energy glowed from his body, spreading through the night like lightning. Yue Chuan's eyes widened as his father inhaled slowly. With a thunderous shout, his father swung the blade down. A blinding purple light split the sky like a bolt of lightning. The ground shuddered as a wave of energy shot toward the mountains. Yi Chuan froze, mouth open in disbelief. He had never seen such power. The pig-killing blade technique, his father's ultimate skill, was not merely for butchering animals. It was a weapon that could slice through anything. Under the shimmering purple night, Yi Chuan watched silently as his father smiled calmly and said, "The first strike is called Falling Star." As he raised the cleaver, the air itself seemed to quiver. Blue stars above appeared to shift, glowing with unnatural brightness. Then he leapt high into the air. "The second strike," he shouted. In that instant, the heavens erupted with light. A storm of energy swirled around him, blue and purple motes spinning like a cyclone as he swung the blade with all his might. The energy cleaved through darkness, shining brighter than the moon. Then his voice rang out across the sky, "Falling moon." A colossal flash descended like an actual moon crashing to earth. The ground trembled. Heat rolled through the air. Yi Chuan covered his face, unable to believe what he was seeing. When the light faded, his father stood tall, the cleaver still glowing in his hands. "Dad," Yi Chuan cried, eyes wide. "How did you do that? That's insane. It's just the surrounding space twisting and folding your vision." His father replied calmly, voice deep and steady. He looked up at the night sky, moonlight reflecting in his sharp eyes. "Now the third strike." He tightened his grip. A confident grin split his face, powerful and unstoppable. "The third strike is called Devouring Sun." With a single swing, the sky seemed to split open. Red light scorched the heavens, brighter than the sun itself. For a moment it felt as if dawn had come early. Golden light poured over the field. Yi Chuan wiped the sweat from his brow and stared, puzzled. "Dad, is this really for killing pigs? What kind of pig needs this skill?" Pigsy from Journey to the West. His father only smiled faintly. "No need to ask. Just learn it. One day you'll understand." Yi Chuan nodded, confused but determined. "I'll learn it well." His father turned to leave, the morning breeze fluttering his robe. "Where's your pig-killing blade?" he asked over his shoulder. Yi Chuan scratched his head awkwardly. "It broke." His father paused, then reached into his belt and produced his own heavy cleaver. He handed it to his son, "Then use mine for now." As soon as Yi Chuan took the blade, his arms sank under its weight. "So heavy," he gasped, stumbling backward and collapsing onto the grass. His father chuckled softly. "Train hard," he said, walking toward the mountain path. "I'm going back to sleep." Yi Chuan lay panting, staring at the massive cleaver in his hands. Dad's been using this to butcher pigs all these years. Unbelievable. He pushed himself up, gripping the handle with both hands. His eyes burned with resolve. "Falling Star," he shouted. Lifting the cleaver high, the blade swung down, and the recoil sent him flying backward, thudding into the ground once more. Hidden behind a tree, his father watched with a small, proud smile. "Silly kid," he murmured. "The day you step into the realm of Seal Kings, these 3 strikes will be strong enough to cut down even Heaven's chosen." The night stretched long and silent. Only the sound of wind and steel echoed across the mountains. Under the dim violet sky, Yi Chuan stood alone on the grass. His body trembled, but his grip on the blade never wavered. Each swing tore through the air, cutting arcs of energy that lit up the darkness like falling stars. He grunted, muscles burning, sweat streaming down his face. The weight of the blade pressed down like a mountain, yet his spirit refused to break. The night faded into dawn. The cold wind brushed against his skin, carrying the scent of morning dew. Ye Chuan's chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes still burned with determination. He dropped to his knees, gasping for air, but he didn't stop. Not yet. In his mind flashed fragments of memory, his father's calm smile, the smirk of the man who had humiliated them, and the promise he made to himself that night. His eyes snapped open. Fallen star! He swung the blade with all his strength. A bright streak of light burst forth, tearing through the ground like a meteor crashing from the heavens. The shock wave split the air, shaking the mountain around him. Dust and stones flew everywhere as Yi Chuan stood, panting, but smiling. Even though his hands bled and his body ached, the fire in his heart only grew stronger. A bright blue screen appeared before his eyes. Level up. You've reached 9th rank apprentice. Strength, 55. The spirit, 55. This monster, Yi Chuan's vision blurred. The numbers glowed brightly, then faded into darkness. His body collapsed onto the ground, completely drained. When he opened his eyes again, he was lying on a hospital bed. The soft sound of machines filled the quiet room. Outside, his mother sat anxiously beside the doctor. Her eyes were red from worry. "Doctor, is my son okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor smiled kindly. "He's fine. He just fainted from exhaustion. Looks like he was doing some intense exercise all night." The mother sighed in relief, but her face quickly darkened. Exercise? Ha, more like his father's crazy training again. She clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. How could a father be so cruel, training his son until he passes out? "Just wait till I get home." The doctor adjusted her glasses and looked at the report seriously. "Judging by the amount of lactic acid in his body," she said, "it seems like he did 1,000 sit-ups, 1,000 push-ups, and 1,000 squats, all in one night." The mother's eyes widened. "What?" she shouted in disbelief. The doctor added calmly, "And he also ran about 100 kilometers. The mother slammed her hand on the table. "Doctor, are you joking with me? No human could do all of that in one night." The doctor smiled lightly, pushing up her glasses again. "A normal person couldn't," she said softly. "But your son, Yi Chuan, he's not exactly normal. Considering his mental focus and determination, it's possible." The mother's face turned red with fury. "That scoundrel of a husband," she yelled, standing so fast her chair nearly tipped. "I'm going home to teach him a lesson. I'll beat him so badly even his own mother won't recognize him." She stormed out of the room, the door slamming behind her with a loud bang. The doctor blinked, watched her leave, then smiled quietly to herself. "I didn't expect him to have such stamina," she whispered. A regular person would have died from that much training. Her eyes glimmered behind her glasses, and a small smirk formed on her lips. "Looks like I'll have to give him some one-on-one coaching tonight." The morning sun poured gently through the hospital window, but when the nurse walked in, the bed was empty. The blanket was still warm, but Yi Chuan was gone. She blinked in confusion. Where did he go? Outside, down a quiet street, Yi Chuan walked slowly under the golden light. His face was calm, but his body still ached from the training. He could feel the weight of what he had accomplished last night. That move, he thought to himself, took a lot of stamina. I shouldn't use it unless it's really necessary. He clenched his fists. The memory of the fallen star strike flashed in his mind. The shockwave, the power, the exhaustion. Even though he had passed out, he could still feel that strength burning deep inside his veins. A small smile appeared on his face. "Oh, right," he said quietly. "I can go to Master Tai Shin's place today. My knife should be ready by now." A soft purple light flashed across the sky. The air shimmered as if something powerful was awakening. Yi Chuan stopped in front of a tall, old building. The red sign above the door read, Iron Heart Foundry. He looked up at it quietly, the glow from the forge lighting his face. "This is it," he murmured. Inside, sparks flew as molten metal hissed and burned. The air was hot, filled with the sound of a hammer striking steel. A large figure stood before the fire, his arms thick like iron, his face hidden beneath a rough beard. His eyes gleamed like hot coals behind the mask of smoke. The nameplate beside him read, Master Tai Shin. He turned his head slightly, sensing someone at the door. The blacksmith grunted, his deep voice echoing through the forge. "Are you Yi Chuan?" Yi Chuan stepped forward, standing tall despite the heat. "I am." The forge burned brightly, sparks dancing in the air. Master Tai Shin crossed his thick arms and looked at Yi Chuan with sharp eyes. "Mr. Zhao has already told me everything," he said in a deep, rough voice. "I worked through the whole night to forge the knife you wanted." The flames glowed red behind him as he grinned, tusks flashing in the light. "But I heard," he said slowly, leaning forward, "you're just a pig butcher, aren't you?" Yi Chuan stayed silent, his calm eyes meeting the master's without fear. The blacksmith smirked. "Hey, I didn't expect the Xia family to pay me a fortune just to forge a blade for a pig butcher." He lifted a heavy wooden box onto the table. The lid opened with a soft click. Inside, resting on dark red cloth, was a short, curved knife. The metal shimmered faintly with a cold light, like moonlight trapped inside steel. "Are you their illegitimate son or something?" Tai Shin asked, his tone half joking, half serious. Yu Chuan's hand twitched slightly, but before he could touch the knife, the blacksmith growled, "Don't be so impatient, kid." He picked up the knife carefully, his red eyes glowing brighter in the firelight. "This knife," he said, "was forged from 1,000-year-old cold iron, a material that only appears after 49 days of refining." He smiled proudly, his voice echoing in the forge. "Its rank, yellow grade, high tier." The air trembled with his words. Then his expression turned serious. "A weapon like this recognizes its owner," he warned. "If your cultivation isn't high enough, forget using it. You won't even be able to lift it." Yi Chuan looked at the glowing blade. His face stayed calm, but his eyes burned with quiet determination. Slowly, he raised his hand. Golden light began to glow from his fingers, faint at first, then brighter. The air around him shifted, swirling with energy. The blacksmith's grin faded. For the first time, he looked surprised. The forge went silent. The flames flickered softly as Yi Chuan's fingers hovered above the knife, then clang. His hand closed around the handle. A bright flash of light burst out, flooding the entire room. The air trembled. The blacksmith's eyes widened. Yi Chuan stood still, his face calm, his grip steady. The blade shimmered faintly in his hand, glowing with a strange, silvery light. Tai Shin froze, unable to believe what he was seeing. "And no way," he muttered. His jaw dropping, Yi Chuan lifted the knife easily, turning it in his hand. The cold metal reflected his calm eyes. "It's a lot lighter than my dad's one," he said quietly. The blacksmith blinked. "Lighter?" His mouth hung open in shock. "Wait, what? Just like that?" The glowing knife shimmered in Yi Chuan's hand, reflecting the firelight. He stared at it quietly for a moment, the blade's cold edge faintly luminous under his gaze. Then he spoke, his voice calm and curious. "What's this knife called?" The blacksmith blinked, caught off guard. "It doesn't have a name yet," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "It belongs to you now. You should be the one to name it," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "It belongs to you now. You should be the one to name it." Yi Chuan looked at the knife again. Light danced across its edge like silver fire. He nodded slowly. "The Xia family really is rich," he said softly, a small smile touching his lips. "All right then," he raised the knife slightly. The fire reflected in his cold eyes. "I'll name this knife." A brief silence, then his lips curved into a faint smirk. Dragon Slayer froze. His mouth fell open. "What?" he shouted in shock, his voice echoing through the forge. "Dragon Slayer?" For a moment there was silence. Then he let out a groan. "That's too cliché," he said, sweat beading on his brow. The sun rose slowly over the city walls. A soft wind carried the scent of smoke and steel. Yi Chuan glanced down at the knife at his waist. Dragon Slayer. Its blade shimmered faintly in the morning light. He took a deep breath and smiled. "Now that I have my knife," he thought, "I should go out and hunt some monsters. Maybe earn a little money. But more importantly, if I can reach the first rank of the Dengtang realm, then I'll finally have a chance to deal with Liu Xing." He stepped out of the city gate. His footsteps echoed softly against the stone road. Behind him, two townsmen talked nervously. "Damn it, I don't know what's happening lately," one said, "but there are so many strange beasts appearing around the city. They're attacking people like crazy." "I know," the other replied. "I passed a plated ground ox today. It's usually harmless, but this time it chased me for 10 miles. He shuddered. It was terrifying. Yi Chuan walked past them silently, his eyes sharp and cold. He smirked. "This is perfect," he whispered. "There are plenty of monsters out there to kill now." The forest was silent. Only the rustling of dry leaves and the faint hum of spiritual energy filled the air. Yi Chuan stood still beneath the towering trees, his black shirt clinging lightly to his frame as the wind blew through his hair. His eyes slowly opened, cold, sharp, and calm. Note, the stronger the spiritual power, the clearer the perception. Then, a sudden vibration. The Dragon Slayer knife hanging at his waist began to tremble on its own. A faint purple glow ran along its blade, as if it were alive, responding to something unseen. Yi Chuan frowned slightly and looked down. The knife lifted itself from its sheath, hovering before him, humming softly in the air. His eyes widened a little, but his face remained calm. "You can move on your own," he murmured. The blade pulsed once, bright and sharp, then shot forward like a flash of light, cutting through the air toward the dense forest ahead. Moments later, Yi Chuan slowly turned his head. 3 figures stepped out of the shadows, tall, rough-looking men with cruel smiles on their faces, their eyes locked on him. The one in the middle grinned, flipping a dagger between his fingers. "Not bad," he said. "You dodged my sneak attack just now. Must be your lucky day." One faint light glimmered in his eyes. 9th stage apprentice realm. He was strong, but not strong enough. The tallest man among the 3 stepped forward, his face cold and sharp under the moonlight. He smirked, his eyes filled with cruelty. "We've been watching you for days," he said. "Brother Liu Xing ordered us, the moment you step out of the city, we're to cut your tendons and drag you back." Just then, a blue digital screen flickered before his eyes. System notice, new weapon selected, Butcher Blade activated the app. Another message appeared. Liu's pit killed. With this blade grants plus 0.3 free attribute points. Yi Chuan's grip tightened around the blade. The purple glow shimmered across its edge as he lifted it, the air around him humming with faint energy. A small smile curved on his lips. "Let me show you something cool," he said calmly. "My new baby, the Dragon Slayer blade." The three men froze for a moment. "Wait," the curly-haired one stammered, pointing at the knife. "What did you just call that thing? Did you say Dragon Slayer blade?" Yi Chuan nodded lightly, eyes cold but calm. "Yeah, that's what I said." The men burst into laughter, clutching their stomachs as they doubled over, nearly falling to the ground. "Ha ha ha ha. You call that little knife a Dragon Slayer blade? You think you're some kind of dragon-slaying hero?" Still smiling, Yi Chuan spoke softly, his voice calm, yet sharp as a blade. "Actually," he said, raising the Dragon Slayer slightly, "I'm not a Dragon Slayer." Laughter echoed through the forest. The three men were still mocking him, wiping tears from their eyes, but Yi Chuan's expression had already changed. The air around him twisted, glowing red like molten fire. The shadows behind him began to writhe. He lifted his head slowly, his voice low, almost a whisper. Actually, his eyes burned crimson, like embers rising from the depths of hell. The blade in his hand pulsed with dark energy, black and red light swirling together, sparks scattering around his feet. He grinned, his face half hidden beneath the blood-red glow. "I'm a pig butcher." The words dropped like thunder. The laughter stopped for a second, then started again, this time forced and uneasy. "Haha, what the hell is this guy saying? He's hilarious." But their laughter didn't last. Before they could blink, Yi Chuan moved. A blinding silver arc flashed through the air. The heavy man's smile froze. He looked down in confusion. A thin, cold line traced across his neck. His hand rose slowly, trembling, trying to touch the wound. System notice. Use the butcher blade to slaughter a two-legged pig. EXP plus 5% bonus damage to pig kind plus 1%. In front of him, the other two men froze, staring at their fallen comrade. "He's dead," one of them stammered, his face pale. "What just happened? Did you see it clearly?" The other man shook his head, panic spreading across his face. No way, he didn't even move. Before they could think, Yi Chuan's shadow blurred. A sharp blue light cut through the darkness, slicing past them. One of the men screamed, ducking instinctively as the blade slashed through the trees behind him. "Hey!" he shouted, stumbling backward. The tallest man clenched his fists, trying to sound brave. "You bastard, that's not loyal at all," he yelled at his companion, who was already backing away. But it was too late. Yi Chuan stood right in front of him now, silent, expressionless, his glowing eyes fixed like a predator's. The man tried to speak, but no words came out. A clean silver line flashed through the air. His vision spun for a brief moment, then everything went red. Yi Chuan lowered his blade, the red light fading slightly. "Two pigs down," he muttered calmly. Use the butcher blade to slaughter a two-legged pig. EXP plus 5% bonus damage to pig kind plus 1% plus 0.3. Free attribute points. The system's cold voice faded, replaced by the trembling breath of the last man standing. He stared in horror at his fallen comrades, blood pooling around their lifeless bodies. His lips quivered. "It's impossible, absolutely impossible. I didn't even see him move." Sweat rolled down his face as his knees shook. "This guy's strength, it's way beyond mine." His instinct screamed at him, "Run!" He turned and bolted into the trees, branches whipping against his face as he sprinted blindly. "He's a monster," he gasped. "Good thing I'm clever. No one's better at running than me." But behind him, Yi Chuan didn't chase. He simply lifted his glowing blade. The butcher blade pulsed once, and vanished in a flash of blue light. The man's body stiffened mid-run. A sharp sound sliced through the air, followed by a dull thud. His legs gave out, and he crashed face first into the dirt, eyes wide open. The butcher blade stood quivering in a nearby tree trunk, its edge gleaming with a faint red glow. Yi Chuan walked up slowly, his calm footsteps echoing in the silent forest. He pulled the blade free with a single motion, flicking off the blood as the system chimed again. Notice damage to pig kind plus 1%, plus 0.3 free attribute points. The faint blue light of the system window faded into the night air. Yi Chuan exhaled softly, his blade still dripping with blood. He looked down at the last body lying at his feet. "You were the ones who attacked first," he said flatly. As he sheathed his blade, something metallic glimmered near the corpse's waist. He crouched and pulled out a small scroll wrapped in gold-lined leather. The words skill scroll were engraved across its surface in bold letters. Yi Chuan blinked, a rare smile curling on his lips. "Whoa," he murmured. "A surprise bonus? Acquired beginner movement skill, Shadow Ghost Step. Upon activation, increases agility by 30% for 30 seconds. So that's how it feels," he muttered, stretching his fingers. The system window vanished, leaving behind a faint echo of power. He smirked. "Even if it's just a beginner skill scroll," he said to himself, "free stuff always feels good." The sound, dull and heavy. His instincts flared. Something had fallen. No, landed. Yi Chuan's eyes darted toward the forest edge. From behind the trees, a massive shadow crawled forward. Long, matted fur, claws digging into the ground, and when it lifted its head, 2 rows of red eyes lit up like burning coals. The creature hissed, saliva dripping from its maw, and its growl rolled through the trees like thunder. The terrified corpse of the bandit beneath it twitched once, then fell still forever. Yi Chuan's pupils contracted. "A demon beast," he whispered. The monster's 6 eyes glowed brighter, locking onto him as it opened its blood-red jaws. A chilling roar shattered the night. Leaves burst into the air. The ground trembled beneath his feet. Yi Chuan's hand tightened around his blade. "So much for taking a break," he muttered coldly. The system chimed again. Rangyu enemy detected. Rank C. Nightfang Demon Wolf. Warning. Strength exceeds user's current rank. Yi Chuan's smirk returned. "Perfect," he said, eyes gleaming with excitement. "Let's test my new skill." He activated Shadow Ghost Step and vanished. A swirl of shadows exploded where he had stood, leaving only the faint afterimage of his smile. The air turned cold. Yi Chuan's eyes narrowed as the shadowy beasts crept out of the darkness, their red eyes glowing like embers. "What kind of weird creature is this?" he muttered, his voice low. On the ground, the bandits' corpses lay torn apart, their flesh shredded by the monster's claws. The beasts were still feeding, their growls echoing through the forest. Yi Chuan's grip tightened on his blade. "So it really dares to eat humans." His calm expression twisted into a dark smile. "I can't let it live. Want this cleaned further for pacing. Faster." He took a deep breath. Shadow Ghost Step. His body vanished in an instant. A streak of blue light tore through the forest, leaving behind only faint afterimages. 27. Yi Chuan's movements blurred, faster than the eye could follow. In one smooth motion, the butcher blade sliced through the nearest beast. Blood sprayed across the grass as the creature's roar turned into a wet gurgle. Another beast lunged at him from behind, but Yi Chuan was already gone. He reappeared above it, his blade glowing red with the system's power. "Too slow," he said quietly. Blinding arc of light cut through the monster, splitting it clean in half. Used Butcher Blade to slaughter a spiked pig. EXP plus 5% bonus damage to pig kind, plus 1%. Beast collapsed, twitching violently. Yi Chuan landed lightly, but his shirt was now full of sharp black spikes sticking out of his body. He winced. "Ah, that hurts." Looking down at himself, he chuckled softly. "Let's just call it acupuncture."